Part 86. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 854. Fubuki was right, Kinyagaza was indeed stupid. It would be nothing if I just saw the sisters who used to guard the mansion. Even though I haven't seen each other for a long time, I know where they must be living. Maybe I work in a Kanyang branch, maybe I work in a company, or maybe I open a store. But the admiral, who had been missing for so long that he was so frustrated that he could never be found, suddenly appeared. It was completely unexpected, never in my dreams. Mutsu entered the living room first, followed by Sugu. When he took off his shoes and stepped on the wooden floor, he subconsciously looked at his left foot and moved his toes. Fortunately, I found a hole in my socks a few days ago. I didn't wait until I returned to the governor's house to change them. Instead, I threw them away and bought them again. Otherwise, it would be a bit embarrassing. Kinyagaza. Kinyagaza was still confused and in a trance, stammering, "Ti, Admiral. It's me, I guarantee it. If it was a little Lolita, Sugu would have opened his hands and hugged her without saying anything, but it was a pity that the other person was a girl. In addition, from the perspective of the game, I don't have much goodwill. After all, they are on par with the Kaohsiung family. It can be said that the new family is mentally polluted, especially since they cannot be reformed. I'm back." Kinyagaza opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. He spat out a few words for a long time. "Welcome." "I'm really stupid." Fubuki put his hands over his mouth and smiled, shrugging his shoulders. I walked to Kinyagaza and patted his sister's head unceremoniously. "Stop dreaming, come back to your senses." Kinyagaza slapped her sister's hand away. When she just spoke, she had already reacted. Now I noticed the people who walked into the living room. In addition to the admiral, there were also many sisters from the garrison: Yukikaze, Fuzu, Ise, Hinata, Ayanami. They greeted each one, except for a white-haired girl who I didn't recognize. But the eyebrows were still quite familiar, and finally his eyes fell on his sister, waiting for her answer. Kinyi didn't speak. Sugu looked around and found that there was no sofa or anything here. He was really not used to sitting on his knees, so he could only sit down with his legs crossed. He thought to himself that he had already explained it 3 times today, and he was really tired. It was just right, he just started, there was no need to say more. Fubuki interrupted, Mutsu added another, and then Changchun. All at once they finished. Kinyagaza kept nodding. In fact, she didn't understand anything at all. Anyway, she just knew that the admiral was back, and she would continue to work for him in the future without worrying so much. "Kinyagaza, you are really enjoying yourself." Mutsu saw the romance novels spread out on the tatami and a plate full of snacks on the low table. He reached for one, a matcha cake, which tasted pretty good. So it must have come from the dim sum shop called Xian at the end of the street. She looked around again. The living room was not big, but there were too many people coming, and there was no place to sit. Otherwise, everyone should go down and talk. The store is much more spacious here, so it doesn't matter if there are more people, that's all 3 tables are filled. Among them, Changchun did not sit with everyone. She gave up her seat next to Sugu this time and lay on the solid wood bar. As a girl from the Northeast and a young girl from the Soviet Union, when she just passed by, she fell in love with the drinks neatly arranged on the solid wood bar. I don't know if it's strong enough, but it's most likely a sake bar, as light as water. But I still want to drink a bottle. Judging from the packaging, I have never drank it before. It's a bit pitiful to say that the fishery administration in the central government can't stand the Japanese. However, the opponents of the Japanese are still the Americans, and they don't have that much thought about the fishery administration. After all, from a historical perspective, it is an existence that is not worth mentioning at all. Although Changchun is a little different, She has extraordinary strength. Of course, everything is just a matter of mutual dissatisfaction, and there will be no small tricks, just like Yuxian will prepare food for Akagya. Mutsu saw Changchun touching the wine bottle with his fingers and turning the bottle. Changchun, you can take it if you want to drink it, you're welcome. Changchun couldn't wait to pick up a bottle and bit open the cap with his mouth. Sugu reminded, Changchun, you drank a lot of wine at the party, so be careful. It's fine. An izakaya, also known as a tavern, is a restaurant that provides alcohol and food. Mutsu stood behind the bar and went to the kitchen to check what other ingredients there were. Then he skillfully tied up his long hair and fixed it with a hairpin. He took off the apron hanging on the wall and took a picture. Clap your hands, what do you want to have as a late-night snack? The menu is on the table. If not, that's fine. If there is, no one will mind. Fubuki looked at the menu and raised her hand, I want charcoal grilled sari. Okay, Mutsu said, what else? Teriyaki chicken cutlet rice, and I also want this, eel rice. Changchun put down the bottle of wine and spoke unceremoniously. She had already finished a bottle of wine, which made Swafeng sitting next to her dumbfounded. She could only drink a bottle of wine. It seems there is no food, I'll cook some more. Soon Mutsu has been on the offensive for several days, and even when repairing, he was still in the Kenmei branch. She couldn't help but said, Aoba, Kinyagaza, you two have been eating out for the past few days, and you haven't started the fire at all. We run an izakaya. Aoba didn't want to answer. Kinyagaza whispered, I've been eating ramen all day today. Consultant Su, don't you know how to cook, Kinyagaza? It is okay. Sugu was a little confused for a moment as to what Kinyagaza's answer was. Is it because my cooking skills are poor and there is nothing I can do about it, or my cooking skills are good but I am too lazy to cook, so I might as well eat out? I used to work and live alone, and my cooking skills were okay, but I didn't want the trouble and ate out most of the time. Ayanamai looked at the window, but it was closed, and curiously asked, do you open the store at night? It's not open, Kinyagaza said, there's no business. Sugu knew that in the world in his memory, even if it was brightly lit late at night, any city of similar size could be said to be a city that never sleeps, such as food stalls, bars, etc. When it gets dark, it is just the beginning. To midnight, or even early the next morning. But it doesn't work here. Even in a big city like Shuangziu, which is famous all over the world, it's hard to see any customers late at night. Kinyagaza lay on the table, even if it's daytime, if the mood gets better, we can open for several days at any time. You guys are so casual, Sugu couldn't help complaining. He knew very well that no matter what most ship girls did, they did it entirely based on their mood. It was impossible for them to work hard to make money from early in the morning to late at night. After all, they didn't have family needs. Consider. In the past, a few sisters in Atlanta were like this when they opened stores, and all the ship girls I met in Chuangziu who opened stores were like this. Join the garrison, you don't have to worry about anything since you have an admiral. Without a garrison, there is a possibility that one day there will be no pursuit and it will disappear on the sea. Croquettes. Fried mushrooms. Fried noodles. When everyone finished ordering, Fuzu felt that it was still difficult for Mutsu to finish it alone, so she stood up and wanted to help. At the same time, Bai Shui also stood up. Despite her young age, she was nicknamed Young Wife in the Admiral Circle. Sugu also thought for a while, and it was time to show off his power. It was at this time that he gained favor. He said boldly, how about I show you my hand? I promise to swallow it with my tongue. Kinyagaza asked, Admiral, can you still cook? Of course. I have trained with Yuxian, and famous teachers produce great disciples. Sugu pretended to be dissatisfied, meaning that you actually dared to question me. Looking at legs or anything like that, I've never done that before. I don't know what are the most beautiful legs in the world under the high-cut Chong Sam. I have never touched her, I really have never touched her. I regret why I didn't agree to my wife Lexington's request. You don't have to make drafts when you brag. After staying at the shrine for many days, Sugu naturally showed off his cooking skills. For Fubuki, comparing his admiral's cooking skills with his sister Kaguya Shirayuki's, there is 100 Fubuki difference. Apart from the emotional bonus, it can only be said to be average and not worth mentioning. The only gimmick is great, the golden egg fried rice, every grain of rice is covered with eggs. After hearing Fubuki's words, Sugu was dissatisfied. He stood up, rolled up his sleeves, and then saw Mutsu, Fuzu, and Shirayuki. Fuzu and Shirayuki's cooking skills have been seen before, and Mutsu's cooking skills have also been mentioned by Z Wikaku. After thinking about it for a while, I was not afraid of not knowing the goods, but I was afraid of comparing goods. Finally, I sat down and decided to forget it. While Mutsu, Fuzu, and Shirayuki were getting ready, they were chatting here. Kinyagaza has been curious since a long time ago. She asked Sugu, "Admiral, why did you always call me Kinyagaza milk?" Sugu thought it was not Kinlai milk, but Ili milk, because there is a milk brand with a name that is very similar to yours. Let me look at Kinyagaza's cows. When Aoba said, he stared at Kinyagaza's chest with an expressionless expression. Why, they are obviously sister ships, so why do they have different body shapes? In order to become an idol, I kept working hard and finally succeeded. This is the only one that won't work at all. She recalled that every time she and her sister took a bath or a hot spring, she would feel a bone-chilling cold even though they were soaking in the warm water. Her hands kept shaking and she had to be hit hard to relieve the pain. Sugu looked at Ili, thinking about Ili cows, Ili milk. He couldn't help but laughed evilly. Ayanami's cold voice suddenly sounded, "Admiral, don't stare lustfully at someone else's clothes." Kinyagaza subconsciously covered his chest. After thinking about it, it didn't matter. He dressed normally. Sugu said, "Is there any?" "There's none." Shikinami calmly covered Yukikaze's ears. As a little Lolita, it's better not to listen to these things, as they will be polluted. Kinyi kept saying it, so after taking a look, it's not a big deal. I can't do anything about what Sugu means. Not anymore. Actually, I suddenly discovered that Kainoli was actually wearing a necklace. Sugu felt that his defense was quite weak. Even so, he was still unwilling to give up. "Kinoli, your necklace is very beautiful. Where did you buy it?" Kinyagaza lifted the necklace from the deep groove on his chest and looked at it. "I just bought it casually when I was shopping. It's not worth anything." Sugu said, "A valuable necklace does not mean it is beautiful. Please forgive me for not admiring the big gold chain, but a beautiful necklace is beautiful." After talking for a while, I don't know when it turned into a criticism meeting. It seemed that Aoba asked how the situation of Akage, the head sister of the Japanese family, was, and then got the answer that she had become a wedding ship, and then the following: it started to get out of control. At this time, Ayanami was holding an ice coke, which was poured by her younger sister Shakia and handed to her. "I have seen 7 admirals with the most wedding ships, and the admirals have 13 wedding ships. It is really amazing. You can really take care of me. Generally speaking, as a ship girl, you don't mind so much that your admiral has many wedding ships. But if possible, of course I hope that my admiral will only have his own wedding ship. There is no doubt about this. But the man has a bad character. He has to defend himself every time because he has no choice but to never admit that he is bothering. So it's better to be a female admiral. No matter how you get married, even if you marry a little Lolita, there is no problem." After drinking several bottles of wine, Changchun asked curiously, "Don't the admirals have 14 wedding ships? Why do you say 13? Sugu counted carefully and it was 13. Changchun realized something was wrong. Sister South Dakota, isn't she a wedding ship? I don't know if that's the case. Sugu was silent for a while. Who ordered the sari? Although only Fubuki ordered the charcoal grilled sari, Mutsu brought a lot of sari. You can leave it if you can't eat it, but you can't neglect it. She said, there are only 13 wedding ships, no more than 10 for wedding ships. The admiral has been very restrained. Count how many people like the admiral. I want to emphasize, I like the admiral, don't forget to count. Kingi said, how many people have the admiral let down? Sugu stared at Yuri, just waiting for her vow line in the game. Even though she remembers it clearly now, the impression is that she persuaded the admiral to open a harem. Since you can't make everyone happy by choosing only one person, then admiral, you just choose everyone. Then he immediately swore that he would never let anyone down. However, he waited for a long time and only got one sentence, Admiral, what are you looking at me for? What? Are you playing with me? Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 855. The raging deep-sea ship girls have been completely wiped out, and the sea has returned to its former calm. It is natural that the cruise ship anchored in the port will set sail. In fact, many people are already complaining that the trip has been delayed for too long. Fuzu and others left the next day, preparing to take a boat back to the garrison. Only Sugu did not leave, because Mutsu, Aoba, and Kinyagaza still had many trivial matters that they had not dealt with. He planned to stay with them and then go back together. Of course, it doesn't matter if it takes a long time. After all, there are still so many people waiting in the town hall, but it is not expected to take a few days, so we can only waste one ticket. It was several days later. Mutsu went out in the morning, mainly to transfer the izakaya. Forget it if you rent it, it's just a waste of rent, but I spent a lot of money to buy it before, and considering that I won't come back after returning to the tutelage, there is really no need to keep it. Although the town government is not short of money, more is always better, and this is not a small amount. Sugu originally wanted to accompany Mutsu, but Mutsu had to go to the Kenmei branch next door, which was still a bit far away. As a ship girl, it wouldn't take long for Mutsu to sail across the sea. He was just an ordinary person, and it was too troublesome to take a bus if he wanted to go there, so he had to give up in the end. In this case, you can only stay at home. Kinyagaza at this time, Sugu was holding up a comic book. All the spiritual food he had brought out had been consumed. He borrowed this book from the girl. Do you usually read comics like this? Is there something wrong? Huge black thunderclouds enveloped the sky over the city, the sky became dark, thunder rumbled, and after a while, large raindrops fell, hitting the landscape trees beside the street. Making a swishing sound. Kinyagaza wanted to close the window, but there was no wind and the rain wouldn't come in. I don't know what to say. Sugu was sleeping on the tatami without any image. He rolled over and put down the book in his hand. An ordinary female high school student met the handsome and aggressive student council president on the morning of her first day of transfer. In the afternoon, she met a weak and cute junior student. When she left school, she bumped into a cold math teacher wearing glasses. Naturally, she became a childhood sweetheart. Indispensable, in short, she met all kinds of outstanding men in a short period of time, and all of them liked her. This was too random. Kinyagaza blinked. Of course she knew what the content of the comics she bought was. The novels and comics you men read are not like that. Sugu fell silent for a moment, not knowing how to answer better. Compared to female-oriented novels and comics, male-oriented novels and comics are indeed more exaggerated. If you accept a girl you see, if you don't accept a girl with positive descriptions, you will be missing out. He suddenly remembered that he was not liked by any girls, but he suddenly traveled to a different world. First, he met the cutest little house in the world, then San Juan, who had no regrets, and then the perfect wife Lexing who was waiting so hard. Done, and the cute sister-in-law Saratoga, could it be that I am living in a novel? Kinyagaza looked at the sky outside the window, put down the book in his hand, and learned from Fubuki that Teiho wrote a novel, which he had to read. There is a faint thunder, and the sky is hazy, but I hope the wind and rain will come, and I can keep you here. There is a faint thunder, and the haze the sky, even if it doesn't rain, I will stay here. Well, Daifeng is really awesome. Wanyosha Sugu said. Kinyagaza was puzzled. Admiral, what did you say? I said what you just read. Sugu said, is from the Manyoshu, Thunder God Tanka. It was not written by Daifeng. She is not that powerful. Well, it's raining heavily now, and there is no faint thunder. My own admiral was a very bad admiral in the past. Even his wife Lexington, or even Xiaozai, made mistakes in exercises or attacks. He would always curse at others, making people afraid to get close to him at all. Now that we get along with each other, it can be said that we have gotten to know each other again. No matter how much I criticize, I won't get angry. At first I thought I would get furious. Very humorous, knows a lot of jokes, bad jokes, and sharp turns. He's just a little horny, there's no doubt about that. So, this is the Admiral. Kinyagaza turned his head and looked at Sugu, dissatisfied. Admiral, you won't be able to find a girlfriend like this. I'm sorry, I already have many wives. Sugu just finished speaking, turned around and saw a spider on the wall next to him, jumped up and bumped into Kingyi who was looking in the mirror next to him. Aoba is practicing how to laugh, how to make it more natural and contagious. This is a necessary skill. Admiral, what are you doing? It's nothing. Sugu was still frightened. It's just a spider. Kingyi turned around and saw the spider. She didn't scream like an ordinary girl. She picked up a book and shot the spider to death. She was disgusted and said, a grown man, is he that scared? I am not that afraid of wild beasts, whether they are lions, tigers, or whatever, but I am really afraid of strange insects. When I was a kid, I dared to catch crickets and grasshoppers, but now I don't have that much courage. I accidentally saw a centipede or something, and I was almost frightened to death and didn't dare to enter the bathroom again. Of course, if you lose, you won't lose. Sugu said, Kingyi, I don't know how to say that you are better. Don't you know? The white-fronted high-legged spider is a beneficial insect. It specializes in catching cockroaches and is a good friend of mankind. He was beaten to death. Do you have any conscience at all? Kingyi hissed and continued to do his own thing. Adults do not remember the faults of villains, but women and villains are difficult to raise. Forget it if it's a game, but now it's reality. Everyone is a real person. If the ship girl doesn't give him face, Sugu has nothing to do. He thought for a while and decided to tease, Kingyi, do you want to make your idol debut when you return to the town guard mansion? Chuangziu, a city developed from the Naval Academy, has more ship girls than any other city in the world, and you can see them casually. It just so happens that the top officials in the city are all ship girls, so they naturally support ship girls in all kinds of things they do. There are a lot of touring idols here, and they are quite popular. Every performance is packed with people. There was also a stampede incident, but fortunately only a few people suffered minor injuries. The Yujin cult originally started here. Unfortunately, now the heroes are old, the beauties are white-haired, and the Yangtze River is passing away. They were beaten by Kungsakan and lost their armor. They can only hide in the corner and lick their wounds alone. No, Kingyi refused without hesitation. Sugu did not give up. Imagine me, I can make you famous. Kingyi tilted his head slightly and looked at Sugu. Let's release 2 singles first. I'm very good at composing lyrics and music. Sugu was cheeky, thinking that he still remembered a few songs. Being a porter would be no problem. As long as he showed them out, he would definitely amaze everyone. Then, we have a light mother, Count Zeppelin, in the garrison. Although it is hopeless now, she used to be an academy instructor and is even expected to become the academy president. She is still very influential. You can ask her to contact several media outlets. Get some hype. King Yi saw Sugu smile and thought that his admiral must be thinking about something strange, so he turned his head and said, "I won't bother you. Don't worry, I won't make any unspoken rules for you." Aoba said nothing and wrinkled his nose. "I really think about you," Suguhan said. "You don't know what the situation in the garrison is like now. There are not many expedition missions, at least compared to the number of people in the garrison. It is rare to have an attack. Basically, York City still has CVS. Minus 16 bags are all." Hey, Kinyagaza, what are you talking about? AI, what's your expression? Don't listen to Changchun's nonsense. Mrs. Shirakujiao completely misunderstood. "I didn't mean to take advantage of others. No, there was no snickering, no secret fun. I was also very troubled by this matter." "What are you talking about, so happy?" a voice suddenly sounded. Sugu looked down the aisle, wondering when Mutsu would appear there. Sure enough, the rain was so loud that I couldn't hear anything. She was soaked all over, her clothes stuck to her skin, but unfortunately it was not see-through at all, and she couldn't see anything. Her hair was stuck to her forehead, still dripping with water, so the heavy rain will come back soon. Unfortunately, Mutsu said, it started to rain halfway through. Lucky one for Shinano, you are a little better than her, lucky 3. Sugu was thinking this. He opened his mouth and wanted to ask how the transfer of the izakaya was going, but he responded, "Stop talking, don't catch a cold, go and change clothes quickly." Admiral Mutsu said in a long voice, but there was no emotion at all, only mischief, as a reward. "Stop. Don't mess around." Sugu saw Mutsu starting to unbutton his shirt, and the white lace had already been seen. The truth of mankind was about to come out, and he quickly stopped him. "Of course, I have to admit, I still want to watch it." Mutsu walked to the bathroom, laughing so hard that teasing the admiral was so fun. "If your luck is so low, you are not afraid of overturning." "Sexy fox," Shoei Hooves Kinyi said. Kinyagaza nodded. This statement is true. If Mutsu continues like this, Sugu doesn't know when he will make a mistake. If she is a woman who doesn't know where she comes from, she can still control her lower body, but she is destined to stay together. For me who has already broken the pot, there is no way to refuse. Everything happens with one impulse. Not long after, when Sugu saw Mutsu again, he saw that her long hair was slightly damp and draped over her shoulders. Her white shirt and jeans had been replaced by a loose yukata. Looking at the collar of the clothes, she was a little suspicious of what she was wearing. Wearing underwear or not, sitting on her knees in front of her, she really looked like a female general. "It's okay. We discussed it and she decided to do it." Mutsu smiled. "I remember chatting with her before and talking about me opening an izakaya. She said that one day she wanted to open an izakaya. It was just right. She didn't have to find an agency and then slowly wait a minute. Now the only problem is money. She has not been awake for long, and she is not in the combat team. Her salary is not that high, and she has to borrow money from everywhere." "You can owe it first," Sugu said, thinking that the transaction object was the ship girl. The embodiment of truth, kindness, and beauty would not do such bad things, such as why should I pay back the money I borrowed based on my ability, unless there is something really unspeakable and there is something that must be done that cannot be paid back. There are only a few steps away from falling into the deep sea. Mutsu said, "I told her, but she didn't want to. But she is very popular, so it is easy to borrow money." Sugu asked curiously, "How much does it cost to transfer?" "It's much lower than the market price." Mutsu held up a number and explained, We have a good relationship, and she doesn't have much money, so I want to take care of it. And since we are in such a hurry to transfer, it should be less under normal circumstances. I don't blame you for taking matters into your own hands. Mutsu said, if you believe us, you don't have to ask, we have to tell. Sugu scratched his hair, the izakaya belongs to you. But we are yours. Sugu looked at Luao and took deep breaths, thinking that he was going to die soon. There is one last thing left. As long as it is completed, we can go back. Mutsu looked at the heavy rain outside the window. Sugu knew what the situation was, and there should be nothing wrong. What happened? Mutsu said, Admiral, you don't remember. There is also Nagato. Don't you want it? The lightning lit up at this time, illuminating the originally dark living room. Thunder rang again. Sugu opened his mouth but said nothing. He had completely forgotten about it. This is an office. The appearance of deep-sea flagships is often accompanied by heavy rain, but not every heavy rain will result in the appearance of deep-sea flagships. However, a large wave of deep-sea ship girls appeared some time ago, and the sea was closed for many days. At this time, people couldn't help but panic, and the vegetation was all deserted. Nagato, with his long hair tied into a ponytail and handsome in military uniform, stood by the window and looked at the dense rain, with a worried look on his face. Have you discovered anything? The bright girl is a member of the combat team, and she has been responsible for patrols and investigations these days. Nothing unusual was found. Really not? No, the girl said, it's just an ordinary heavy rain. Nagato walked beside the wall with a huge map hanging on it. Looking at the ocean in the center of the map, there was deep-sea Akagakaga nestled together. The one sleeping on the ship's suit was deep-sea airport deep-sea kamikaze. The majestic one with hands on hips was deep-sea Ryajo. The one wielding a huge scythe is Fukamai Shokakuzi Wikaku. The one with no clothes on, crying, and a board hanging on his chest is Fukamai model worker Yamato. I don't know why, I feel very uneasy, as if there is something scary. Shadows stand close to me. I don't feel anything. The girl thought for a while. I'd better go and investigate again. Forget it, no need. Nagato looked at the ceiling and saw a spider web there. At this time, a moth landed on it. No matter how he fluttered, it was of no use. I have a feeling that I am the moth, but I don't know where the spider web is, which makes me more and more uneasy. So much salary every month, just cleaning, so careless. The girl looked at the ceiling and found the spider web. I'll get the broom. Don't worry about it, just do your own thing. Nagato said, bring me a pot of tea. Nagato unexpectedly wanted to see if the moth could break free of the spider web. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Haide Rong Yan. Chapter 856. Nagato, I don't care at all. Even though it's the Shishibukai, there are already so many powerful ship girls in the garrison. Bismarck, Tirpitz, the Prince of Wales, there are simply too many to count. One more is not too much, and one is missing. Quite a bit. But since you want her to join the garrison, she is still your sister ship, so I have no objection and support you. If I hadn't seen her eyes shining brightly and full of expectation, I would have believed such nonsense. I don't have much to say. I'll just make two simple points. I never thought beforehand that I could say so much. Let's talk about inducement first. This is easy to understand. As long as you come, you will get it, otherwise I lose. We promise cat cannons, Mk6, and Type 91 armor-piercing bombs, which are equipment that a battleship cannot refuse. Of course, Nagato is definitely not an easy person to deal with, and this is too simple and crude. I remembered that joke again. The teacher asked the students, what is your ideal? The students answered money and beautiful women. The teacher shouted loudly and said it was vulgar. Obscene. The student replied again, he said career and love. The teacher said his ideals are lofty and noble. How do you say that? Ride the fastest horse, climb the highest mountain, eat the spiciest food, drink the strongest wine, play with the sharpest knife, kill the cruelest person, and sleep with the most beautiful, ahem, no more. In short, you have to learn to speak, learn to talk about ideals, talk about pursuits, and say that life is only 100 years old. What should you do as a battleship? Use the most powerful equipment to challenge the most powerful opponent. I don't know Nagato's character, whether he is a fighting maniac, but I still think that the effect of Akatsuki's love may be better. So you have to learn to say that you must return to the garrison. It is a faraway place. I don't know when we will be able to meet again. I want to live with Sister Nagato and am unwilling to leave. Sister, Nagato-sensei, please call me sister more often. Remember, we don't need Nagato to answer right away. There is no rush to join the garrison. We only have one request, and that is for her to come to our garrison to have a look, and then stay there for a few days, no matter what the use is. Reasons include fun, travel, visits, challenges, exercises, studies, anything. As long as you are here, you are not just allowed to be squashed and rounded by us. I only want to get so much for the time being. Anyway, you will be free to express yourself when the time comes. I believe in you. Mutsu walked on the seaside embankment with her hands behind her back. She looked away from the clear blue and transparent sky after the rain. She turned around and saw Nagato walking behind her. She remembered what her admiral said yesterday and smiled. Nagato, Sister Nagato, I came here to see you today mainly to say goodbye to you, because I will be returning to the Tutelari mansion in a few days. It is far away from here, and I am afraid it will be difficult to see you again. Naturally, Nagato didn't know what Mutsu's plans were, so she responded, a little sad. Nagato-san, my Nagato-san. Mutsu pretended to smile to hide his reluctance. Don't make such an expression. This is something to be happy about. The admiral is finally back. Nagato crossed his arms and smiled this time, unable to let the fun down. Think about it, we have known each other for more than a year. The sea breeze blew from a distance. Mutsu stretched out his hand to straighten his bangs and tucked the loose hair behind his ears. For such a long time, even though the admiral has disappeared and is no longer around, he still has his own life and will not be so depressed. I just occasionally sit alone at the bar of an izakaya and drink in the dead of night. Although I don't like drinking, I enjoy the feeling of being slightly drunk, and the admiral is beside me in a trance. Nagato remembered that the streets were full of cherry blossoms, about a year and a half. Thank you, Nagato-san, for your help. Mutsu remembered that she was surrounded by people, but Nagato acted bravely. She said excitedly, I remembered Nagato-san's whip kick again. The gangster seemed to have turned around in a circle, falling to the ground. And that one over the shoulder, it's so cool. It's obviously a ship girl or a battleship. You can easily subdue them with one finger. Nagato looked at Luao. The opponent was more powerful than him, not only in terms of training, but also in terms of equipment, which meant that he looked weak. That's all. When he saw his frowning face, he offered to help without waiting to speak. It was the first time he fought side by side and felt the strength of the other party. He was completely frightened that he was so strong. Except for the first time and the second time I met you at that time, he must have been surrounded by a group of gangsters. I don't want to either. Why am I so unlucky that I always encounter that kind of thing? Mutsu was a little aggrieved. Compared to Aoba and Kinyagaza, he had been approached too many times when he went out. Among the 10 guests who come to the izakaya, at least 5 or 6 are not interested in drinking, but in the beautiful proprietress. Nagato said, Who asked you to dress like that? How am I dressed, without an admiral by his side, and without a woman looking to please him? Mutsu still didn't mind dressing up. But no one deserves to dress sexy and revealing without an admiral by their side. Mainly because of the personality. No matter how conservatively you dress, even if you wear a big windbreaker to cover up your plump figure, you still give people a lustful feeling. It seems to be easy to succeed, so there are more flies and mosquitoes. Even if you wear a big windbreaker to cover up your plump figure, do you deserve to be harassed if you are exposed? I didn't expect that Nagato is also that kind of person. That's not what I meant. Nagato still had no problem with his 3 views. It's just that tigers are harmless to people, but tigers can hurt people's hearts. It's better to be careful. I know, but it's difficult, unless you dress up deliberately to look ugly. The 4 sisters who were aided by the class looked like they were just high school students. Their figures were so pitiful that Mutsu thought he had no rival. Nagato nodded, acknowledging this. But I don't need your help the second time. I have knocked them all down before you arrived. Mutsu held onto the handrail of the embankment, looking at the cargo ship passing in the distance, gearing up. Although in the story, the male protagonist always arrives at the most critical moment, and the heroine is just 1 second away from being violated, there are not so many coincidences in reality. If it's just a conversation, forget it. It's okay if your eyes are restless and peeking. I can just block it. They dare to move. They are simply bastards. They must be taught a lesson. Forget it if it's a girl. My body belongs to the Admiral. No one can touch it except him. There was no sluttish expression on Mutsu's face at all. It's a pity that he didn't want to touch it either. I even sent it to the door. He was obviously so horny that he wanted to pounce on him, but he actually held back. I need to think about a better way to seduce him. It doesn't seem possible to seduce him while wet, so it turns out that attacking him at night is better. He doesn't seem to be good at refusing. Nagato automatically ignored what Mutsu said next, but you were a little too cruel. All those people suffered comminuted fractures. You deserve it. Mutsu didn't care, thinking that if he hadn't been the one at that time and still had powerful power, and an ordinary girl would have met a murderous hand, it might have been a lifelong shadow. Many people pity the bad guys, but they don't know that the good guys are even worse. Regarding Mutsu's words, Nagato didn't say much. In fact, she still supported it. She just said casually, the 3rd time, I happened to pass by the izakaya you opened and went in to eat. From a historical perspective, we are sister ships, but after many things happened, we became friends and slowly became closer. Just a little bit closer to becoming sisters. Mutsu shook his hands and remembered something. I was standing behind the bar, and Nagato-san was lying on the bar talking. I miss that time so much, and I don't know if there will be a next time. I didn't expect that Nagato, who is usually so handsome, became so cute after drinking, and actually said bad things about others. Nagato thought to himself that even if he served as the head of the ship girl branch, he would still encounter many unsatisfactory situations at work. I don't want to complain in front of my boss. Ever since I got acquainted with Mutsu, every time I went to an izakaya to drink, I would complain and talk to each other. This one is a bastard, that one is a troublesome guy, and he made another mistake at work today. Once the conversation started, I couldn't stop talking until late at night, and I stayed over many times for this reason. If the other party wants to leave, I don't know what to do in the future. Mutsu smiled. To be honest, Nagato-san is really unqualified as the head of the ship girl branch. She has been working as a ship girl for so many years and she always encounters various problems. But she still has some self-knowledge and leaves everything to the big housekeeper. Falcon, just sign and seal it yourself. I thought about handing her the position of minister and then becoming a flagship and a warrior, but she didn't want to. The desire for power cannot be said to be good or bad. There are still a small number of ship girls who have it, but they don't know how to take it. Just do bad things with power. Someone is a little bit obsessed with the position of secretaryship and eldest wife. At least Nagato didn't. She leaned on the railing and rubbed her forehead. As a flagship? As a warrior, Mutsu said, Nagato's strength is not as good as mine. Although it's not as good as a monster like you, Nagato said, but it's powerful enough. It hasn't been long since I participated in the exercise, and my training level is still far from the limit. I am proud to be Big 7, but the parameters of the ship's equipment are not very good. I heard that Maryland and West Virginia have grown, so I guess I am no match for them. Washington and Richelieu have also grown up, and I don't know how strong they have become. Looking forward to the day when he grows up, Mutsu said, what's weird? In fact, my strength is not worth mentioning in our garrison. You only know one Tirpitz, and she is just the tip of the iceberg. Mutsu returned to the izakaya in the afternoon, and she had been out for most of the day. Sugu was anxious all morning, impatient and afraid of getting the disappointing answer. His mood was a bit complicated. Did it succeed? Mutsu asked back, what do you think? I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Sugu decided to poison himself first. He couldn't find any clues from Mutsu's expression, and even if he found something, he wouldn't dare to believe it because the other person had a character that liked to tease people. No matter what, Nagato is still unwilling to go to the garrison with us. She is the head of the ship girl branch, and there are many things that she can't let go of. However, I followed the admiral's instructions and repeatedly lured her with benefits and moved her with affection. She finally felt a little moved. Mutsu said, she agreed, and she would come to our garrison to visit us and stay for a few days if she had the opportunity. I know. Suga-shun took a piece of yokon in his hand. His heart was completely cold now, and it felt so cold. There is no hope. It is absolutely correct to be perfunctory. For ordinary people, as long as they say you are a good person or I am a bad woman, they will basically know everything. For the ship girl, saying I will definitely visit your garrison in the future can basically declare that the boat rescue has failed and is a death sentence. I gave her 23 cannons, Mutsu said suddenly. Sugu was a little confused for a moment. What do you mean? After the agreement was made, I gave her the 23 cannon. I should say I lent it to her. I will return it when she comes to our garrison in the future. There are many reasons. Your equipment is too bad. The 23 cannon is not suitable for her. It's nothing to our town government. Be careful of the deep sea ship girl coming back. Mutsu said, even if it was just perfunctory at first, I forgot about it after a while, and I can't forget it now. We know her character, taking other people's things. It's hot. I originally planned to wait half a year before coming back, but now it should be very soon. Sugu looked at Mutsu little by little. The girl was good at tricks. Mutsu smiled lightly, walked behind Sugu, knelt down, and squeezed his shoulders. When Nagato arrives at the Tutelari mansion, the rest is everyone's business. Once you come, you will never leave. Sugu has this confidence. Mutsu said, she turned into a bad woman. We are also thinking about Nagato, Sugu persuaded, feeling a bit shameless himself. Mutsu is willing to do anything for the admiral. Naughty hooves. After Mutsu left, Nagato was still standing on the embankment. She unfolded her ship uniform and experienced the power from the 23 cannons. Although it is not as good as Mk6, it is already a very powerful piece of equipment. It turns out that one day, my firepower exceeded 180. This kind of power makes people unable to extricate themselves. Finally holding back, Nagato fired a cannon towards the sea. Looking at the huge water column that splashed up, he murmured to himself, it's really powerful equipment, even if it's deep-sea Tirpitz, or deep-sea Yamato, right? It's easier to deal with. For the first time, I am eager to see the deep-sea flagship. It's just a pity that it's not my own, but one day, I will be equipped like that again. The #1 garrison in the world, Nagato smiled. After the matters at hand are dealt with, take a break to see Mutsu and challenge those monsters to see if they are really that scary. Nagato came to his office on the second day. Actually, thinking about it, he was not that bored. Originally he just looked at it, but now he saw the spider web on the ceiling and found that the moth failed in the end. It broke free, leaving only a pair of wings hanging there. Poor moth. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De-Rong Yan. Chapter 857. Sugu hasn't set off yet, but Fuzang and others have already returned to the governor's mansion. Where is the admiral? Why didn't you see him? Although the admiral usually doesn't think anything of it when he is in the garrison, he even feels a little annoyed. He is really heartless and likes to bully others. But after he left the garrison, he missed him all the time. I see. There is indeed a mysterious connection between the admiral and the ship girl. This is too much of a coincidence. When Saratoga first saw Fuzu and Ayanami, her attention was focused on their fingers and she didn't find the ring, so her mental arithmetic relaxed. But when he heard that his brother-in-law was now with Mutsu, his heart immediately lifted. Who is Mutsu? A sexy, vixen, coquettish woman with an explosive figure and a charming figure. She can be said to be a man's stunner. This can't go on like this. This cannot go on. The sun is like fire, the earth is like a steamer, and it is so hot that people can't breathe. Whether it is the leaves or the long grass, they cannot withstand the scorching sun and have slowly drooped their leaves. Only the little lowly is not so afraid of the heat and is still playing around. Xiaozai carried the legendary weapon Frostmourne, and she was the only one who owned it in the whole garrison. Lafite carried the sophisticated weapon Bat and rushed towards the great demon king of Kushing. Mahan had no intention of helping his sister, and stood nearby eating popsicles and watching the fun. Then, because the movement of eating popsicles in and out was quite unsightly, Helena, who was passing by, frowned and knocked her on the head. In fact, there are still people who are not afraid of the heat. A battle is raging in the training room of the complex building. Straight punch. Block. Right hook. Passed by. Swift and powerful whip legs. Eat hard. Although always bullied by Missouri, Hindenburg is actually quite powerful. Even though she usually enjoys fighting, she felt uncomfortable all over without fighting for a day. Maryland, who was experienced in fighting, was overwhelmed by her stormy offensive. In the end, he was grabbed by the collar and belt, lifted up, and smashed on the cotton pad to end the fight. I lost. Why did you lie down before I exerted any force? Hindenburg laughed. Since joining the garrison, her way of speaking has become closer and closer to that of Sugu. Haha, I don't feel comfortable if I don't educate you, right? You weakling, who are you calling a silly big sister? Maryland lay on his back on the cotton pad. I admit, you are not a stupid sister. Try saying something again. Silly lady. Feeling something was wrong, he raised his eyebrows and Hindenburg growled menacingly. She has already integrated into the garrison. She is not as polite as she used to be when she thought she was an outsider. I'm willing to admit defeat. Call me sister, call me sister, call me Sister Hindenburg. Sister, sister, Sister Hindenburg, Maryland said louder and louder. Are you satisfied? Hindenburg was satisfied, wiped his nose with his thumb, and snorted, satisfied, my Maryland sister, be good. Sister, you lost again. West Virginia squatted next to Maryland and reached out to poke her sister's handsome face. You can see that every time she couldn't find anyone to fight with, she would be forced to go to the training room. If she resisted, she would be beaten. Even if she was nonviolent and uncooperative, she would be beaten. Now that she was beaten up, she was in a good mood. Okay, you haven't had a roof over your head for 3 days, you seem to be lacking in education. I can't beat Hindenburg, How can I beat you? Maryland was furious when he saw his sister's triumphant look. Come. It's just that I don't have any strength and I don't want to move. After all, I just want to say something. She reluctantly got up and sat down, stretched out her hand. Bring it here. The last sentence was meaningless, and another person would not be able to understand it at all, but as the younger sister, West Virginia still knew what it meant. She quickly ran to the window and brought water and a wet towel. Maryland wiped his face with a wet towel and took a sip of water. That guy is really awesome. It's not very powerful, it's very powerful, West Virginia couldn't help but say. In fact, she also fought with Hindenburg, but of course it was not like Maryland. Hindenburg didn't want to fight, so he resorted to aggressive tactics and called silly sister, and finally provoked a merciless attack. The two of them just discussed each other on a whim, that's all. Even so, there was absolutely no way to fight back. The aggressive Mary was never afraid of any failure. Maryland clenched his fist and said, "Next time, I will definitely win next time." West Virginia said, "Actually, sister, you can change your opponent, you don't have to be stubborn about Hindenburg." Who? South Dakota fat. Too weak. Maryland shook his head. If he only used the strength of ordinary people, the little fat man is not worth mentioning. His fighting level should still be at the level of hair pulling, although this trick is very effective. Washington. Maryland panicked. She took out an axe when she said nothing. West Virginia thought for a while. By the way, has my sister fought with Richelieu? Maryland thought to herself, Richelieu asked her to help him when he grew up, but only once, and he lost. It's certain that she didn't use her full strength at that time. Even if she was destined to lose, it didn't matter if she was beaten, bruised and swollen. She wanted to see how powerful she was with all her firepower, so she had a goal. Think about it, maybe you can provoke Hindenburg like you did this time, but she is not easily provoked. But if you call her Sister Lee who hates marrying or Fat Lee, she will definitely become violent, so still forget it. I'm still young, and there are countless beautiful scenery I haven't seen yet, so I don't want to die like that. Lexington was among the onlookers. When she saw Hindenburg, she stood beside her, brushing her hair, and praised, "Hindenburg, he is very powerful." It's okay. Faced with others who were quite arrogant and dismissive, Hindenburg was unexpectedly humble when faced with Lexington, who could be called a perfect secretaryship in any aspect, whether it was work or personality. After a while, he smiled a little shyly. "Hindenburg has become stronger," Lexington said. "The admiral has a little more strength at his side." Hindenburg didn't have a good look on Sugu, who always teamed up with Missouri to bully him. "Of course, that is the admiral whom I recognize. How could I really hate him? That guy is so annoying. If it weren't for the admiral, I would have." "Yeah, it's so annoying," Lexington smiled, "but we are ship girls and he is the admiral." When Royal Ark heard Lexington's words, he thought to himself, "Here it comes again, here it comes again. Lexington, you are going a little too far. You are an admiral when you speak, but you are still an admiral when you don't. The admiral is heaven, the admiral is the earth, the admiral is faith, and the admiral is everything. You must not resist. CV-16 has been affected, it has become hopeless, and its values have been completely distorted. I'm afraid that even if the admiral pushed her down, she wouldn't dare to resist," and silently admitted that this was what a ship girl should do. Lexington naturally didn't know what Ark Royal was thinking. She said a few words to Hindenburg and then went to the coffee shop. In fact, watching everyone fight is just passing by the training room. "Iced red tea. Lexington is actually here." Santiago held the tray. She had a voluptuous figure and was the cutest among the cat-eared sisters. Her tail hooked up to a small anchor was wagging, making people want to touch it. At this time, discrimination appears. It doesn't matter how others touch you. Touching someone is a bad form of sexual harassment. Yes. Most of the work has been taken care of, so it's time to take a break. Lexington drank drinks, ate snacks, and even played a game of chess with Bumblebee in high spirits, and of course he won. Let's try it again. Bumblebee refused to admit defeat and felt that she was only just close to winning. She always thought so. Win and run couldn't be more exciting. Lexington said, "Funny, I won't come, I still have a job." Not long after, holding a cone in one hand and a large glass of iced Coke in the other, Lexington left the cafe and walked back to the office. Lexington felt the wind blowing in his face like a heat wave. When I entered the office, I immediately turned on the floor and ceiling fans, and finally felt a little cool. This issue needs to be carefully considered. No, absolutely not, the conditions are too harsh. Why hasn't my husband come back yet? Honey, I miss you. Okay, let's continue working and deal with this document first. After finishing all the work, Lexington saw the bright sunshine outside the window and suddenly wanted to take a nap. Ka. There was a slight accident. Lexington stood at the door of his room, turned the handle, and suddenly found that the door was locked. She felt a little strange, because she never locked the door, she just simply closed it. After all, there were no outsiders in the town hall. After thinking about it, she reached out and knocked on the door. Gia. Yes, Saratoga's slightly panicked voice suddenly sounded. Why did you lock the door? I am sleeping. Within seconds, the door opened, and Lexington saw Saratoga standing in the doorway. Women are born detectives. She discovered a lot of strange things in an instant, and locked the door secretly. If it was a nap, she would never have answered so quickly. There was no trace of panic in her words, no sleepy laziness, her blonde hair was not scattered at all, and the evasive looks were too many to count. Are you really taking a nap? What did I lie to you for? Saratoga noticed something was wrong and quickly rubbed his eyes, pretending to have just woken up. Lexington smiled. Are you secretly wearing my clothes again? What am I doing wearing your clothes? Saratoga became dissatisfied at that time. Women are all petty, and they can remember trivial things for a lifetime, and then dig them out to settle old scores when necessary. Even the perfect wife Lexington is no exception to this. I saw her looking around, trying to find something else. I still remember that someone put on my wedding dress while I was away, and even learned my voice. How long ago was that? Sister still remembers it. Why don't you do this? Saratoga yelled, remembering that time when she stole her sister's wedding dress and was caught doing something wrong, and finally knelt down. He begged for forgiveness on the ground and finally received it. If you don't steal my clothes, then the time from knocking on the door to opening the door was too short, obviously not enough to change clothes. Lexington looked at her sister Saratoga. Although Bazai's book had been controlled and was not allowed to be circulated, she had such a good relationship with Bazai that it was not difficult to get a copy. It could even be said to be a piece of cake. You can't be secretly reading a book, secretly reading a pornographic book. No, why should I watch that kind of thing? It's always disgusting, Saratoga said casually, of course. She had seen a lot of it and fantasized about it a lot. I and the Admiral also looked at the book and did many ridiculous things. With this thought in mind, Lexington remained calm on the surface. She walked around the room, lifted the quilt and took a look, then squatted on the ground and looked under the bed. She couldn't see any problem anywhere. Even if you are reading a book, there is no need to be embarrassed. After all, you are also on a wedding ship. I really didn't watch it? Okay, if you don't watch it, you don't watch it. Lexington didn't care too much. She was really a little tired. Gaga, are you still sleeping? I'm going to take a nap. Saratoga shook his head. I won't sleep anymore. I've had enough sleep. It's not like Royal Oak. It looks like I can't get enough sleep all day long. Until Sister Lexington fell asleep, really slept. Saratoga knew very well how cunning her sister was. She moved a bench and placed it next to the closet, and carefully took out a book, the Goddess Daily Cultivation Manual, from the top of the closet. I bought it from Chuangziu. After reading a few pages, it seemed to make sense. Saratoga hugged the book and left the room. She decided to change the place to read. She walked through the corridor, thinking that as long as she learned all the tricks in the book, her brother-in-law and other things would be within reach. It's just Mutsu, nothing special. What Missouri is, it's just childish. Bismarck, Ziwihi, Bizai, even with the reputation of the maid chief, or even his sister Lexington, no one can be his opponent. At this rate, it will only be a matter of time before he dominates his brother-in-law. Plan pass. Saratoga tilted her head, her long hair hanging down, and covered her mouth with her hands. No, I have to hold back and not laugh out loud, but I think I will become the heroine of the castle. Only you can do it. Can others do it? Can this be achieved? Can you continue? Yes, the only thing in my brother-in-law's eyes is himself. At least I still held back and didn't pounce on Mutsu, although I was a little timid just thinking about it. Until mid to late September, Sugu took Lueo and several others back to the garrison. Walking up the steps, Sugu began to introduce, "This is our guardhouse. Isn't it very small?" "That's enough," Mutsu said. "Admiral, you are finally back." Sugu caught the flying mackerel. Brother-in-law. When Sugu saw Saratoga, he always felt that there was something wrong with the way the girl looked at him. Mutsu didn't care at all that Saratoga was sneering at her, and her eyes fell on Missouri. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 858. The Admiral has been out for many days, and finally returned to the garrison. There are many sisters there, so of course a grand party will be held. Although these people who came back were all Japanese, Yuxian did not treat them differently. Fuzu and Xianghe, since it was daytime, Kaohsiung could also help, and they even served their best dishes. The ensuing banquet gradually came to an end. Many people put down their dishes and began to drink slowly or chat among themselves. Akage was still in the midst of feasting. His reputation as a glutton was well earned, and he felt a little stressed in the face of London's murderous cuisine. It is said that someone once suggested that London cooking should be used as punishment. When the little Lolita disobeys and the adults make a mistake, they are no longer locked up in a small black room. Instead, they choose from biscuits to scones according to the degree. The final punishment is a specially made lamprey to look up at the stars. But there was immediate strong opposition, and the reason was too inhumane. But the bald eagle Belmaken isn't a human, so it doesn't matter. Quincy is also a good eater, but with her sister New Orleans watching over her, she is not allowed to eat too much. But if you can't help it, she will eat secretly. Once you can't see her, you will find that the food in the circle with her as the center suddenly disappears. She has had the experience of eating all the tomatoes in the kitchen before. And there are many people feeding her, but of course feeding her grass is not allowed. Call me sister, Sister Yorkchen. Yorkchen likes to do this kind of thing. She likes to hear people call her sister the most, and she doesn't know when she developed this habit. I saw her taking advantage of New Orleans' absence to wave snacks in front of Quincy. Quincy smiled sweetly. "Sister. Be good." York City placed the snack on Quincy's open hands, then touched her head, feeling that the girl was too cute. Ever since he returned to the tutelage, Aoba has been staring at Quincy and paying attention to everything about the girl. Unexpectedly, I am very good at using chopsticks and likes to serve rice. After eating 3 large bowls of rice, I wanted to add more rice, but my sister New Orleans stopped me, so I started to cheat, and finally I ate 1 more bowl. Now because a piece of snack calls someone sister, idiot. York City heard this, she just looked at Kinyi and didn't care anymore. On the one hand, it was a fact that Quincy was an idiot. There was no doubt about it. On the other hand, she and Kinyi were not familiar with each other at all and had no communication at all. They had just met. It's just one side, it's hard to show anything. Eating the snack happily, of course not chewing it slowly, but swallowing it in one bite and chewing it slowly. Now Quincy's cheeks are bulging and round, like a hamster. She naturally heard Kinyi's words, but she didn't think it was her who was talking about him. After all, she was so smart. The Admiral said he was as wise as a fool. Fool Quincy, look at me. Kinyi blinked, seeing what York City did, it inspired her. She searched everywhere, snatched the food from Akaga's mouth and snatched a chicken drumstick. Ignoring Akaga's aggrieved look, she said to Quincy, "Call me sister, call me Aoba sister, just call me and I will give it to you. As long as there is food, it doesn't matter even if you call the little loli your sister." In Quincy's mind, just calling her sister and getting food in exchange for it was a business that was sure to make a profit. In addition, she didn't regard Kinyi as an opponent at all. She didn't care so much. She swallowed and said, "Sister." Aoba laughed loudly at that time, but did not keep his promise to give Quincy the chicken legs. Although she was already full, looking at Quincy's eager eyes, she didn't mind eating more. She deliberately and slowly brought the chicken leg to her mouth, gently bit off a piece of meat, and shook her head. "It smells good, it smells so good, it's delicious delicious." Quincy saw that Kinyi had finished eating the chicken legs, leaving only a few bones. She reacted and immediately shouted, "Sister, Kinyi bullied me." New Orleans heard it, and many others heard it. Sugu is the mascot of the Toot Larry Mansion, and Quincy is the pet of the Toot Larry Mansion. They will never allow any bullying. And even if it were another person, it would be like pinching his face or rubbing his head at most. But Kinyi is different. If it were her, it would definitely be a heinous bullying that had been planned for a long time and would not be forgiven. Haha, Kinyi was still laughing, but she stopped laughing after a moment. She found that something was wrong with the surrounding atmosphere, and many people were staring at her eagerly. Needless to say, New Orleans is full of eyebrows and raised eyes. Colorado was holding a plate and eating something. Her two younger sisters, Maryland and West Virginia, were standing on both sides. All three sisters were looking at this side. The most worrying thing was Washington. His eyes were narrowed and his hand was placed on the back of the chair, as if he could pick it up and hit someone later. "Kinyagaza, I'm so tired, I really want to sleep." Aoba turned his head and made a ha-ha, deceiving himself and others that nothing happened. Near the pillar, Sugu was chatting with Missouri, talking about various things. When Mutsu walked by, she always felt a little concerned when she saw how close the two people were. "I thought it was not jealousy." The Admiral and Lexington, or whoever it was, didn't have much feelings for each other. I really can't explain why, but it started when I returned to the town hall and saw that guy named Missouri who looked like a green tea bitch. If you let the literary girl Dafeng say it, this is probably literati are indifferent to each other. Originally wanting to talk to Kaga, Mutsu walked to Shugu and sat down, and when he saw Missouri, "Is this sister Missouri?" Missouri glanced at Mutsu and snorted. She was no match for her peers. "Sister, although she looks a little younger than my sister." The two of them faced each other, and it was a good show. Martial arts masters may learn a few tricks from a duel at the top of the Forbidden City. York pushed his sister Exeter, Blucher put down his stake, and Cologne was chatting happily with Leipzig, but she fell silent. Richelieu smiled contemptuously and turned his head, but his eyes were uncontrollable. In short, many people put down what they are doing. Only Saratoga smiled disdainfully. He had martial arts secrets. What's the point of novices pecking each other? He was clearly the one who struck first, but he was caught from behind. After losing a move, Matsu clenched his fists. However, everyone was disappointed. She looked around and just smiled. She did not choose to fight and continued to criticize Missouri, which would only make others laugh. She chose to hold the side of her face with one hand and looked at Sugu intently. Saratoga was sitting next to Bazai. She was paying attention to her brother-in-law Sugu from beginning to end. When she saw Matsu's movements, she suddenly remembered what was written in the Goddess Daily Training Manual. When holding your face, tilt it slightly to the left and make an octave angle. That is a magical angle that can effectively increase the cuteness. I sat in front of the dressing table and practiced over and over again. After practicing many times, I felt perfect. But now that I saw Matsu, it was clear that he was just demonstrating the movements, and I just felt that he was not up to par now. His expression was unnatural, and his movements were too stiff, which could only make people look awkward and give him a glimpse of his skills. Sugu quickly realized something was wrong. Matsu, what are you looking at? Nothing. Matsu raised the cup in his hand. I just thought, I haven't touched a cup with the Admiral yet. Bang. Everything goes well and all your wishes come true. Sugu clinked the cup with Matsu. Saratoga's eyes fell on Matsu, and she was amused. She remembered what was said in the book, only men who clink glasses go straight forward, while ladies must restrain their upper arms and draw an arc when clinking glasses. Matsu didn't do that. What a failure. But looking at the look in my brother-in-law's eyes, something is wrong. This is a letter of trust, so why not? Missouri was sitting closer. She could see it more clearly than Saratoga. She only saw that Matsu's collar was wide open, and not only that. It was definitely outlined with light brown eyeshadow, highlighting the deep ravine. It gives people a feeling of being ready to come out. No wonder every time I hear people mention it, they say it's a coquettish hoof. I'm really right. This routine is quite powerful. I didn't want to argue, but I didn't come to the door. There was no reason to back down. I could only take advantage of a certain man. Missouri held her long hair together with both hands, separated it into two bunches, spread it out a little, and then stretched her body. It's a little hot. As long as you learn these 9 seductive moves, you can completely win over a man under your pomegranate skirt. Saratoga was simply stunned, and Missouri used 2 moves at once. When a woman stirs her hair, she exudes a charming fragrance, which is like being in a state of ecstasy. It can make all men fly away, and they can't help but start fantasizing about having sex with her. Naturally showing the concave and convex lines of the body, of course, like Veneto, who has no breasts at all. Besides, the lazy feeling will make people very comfortable, and when you see the tall and straight breasts, you can't help but want to go up. If you touch it, it can be said to be a powerful weapon against men. Otherwise, the cafeteria should also be equipped with air conditioning. Sugu looked at Missouri and saw the black vest with many letters printed on her body. He saw her collarbone and armpits and didn't dare to look any further. But the space here is too big. I'm afraid it won't be as effective as a fan. The tutelage is in the south, so it's hotter than in the north on weekdays. He always wears a yukata in an izakaya, but he doesn't wear it that way when going out. Now Matsu wears a one-shoulder white shirt and jeans. Compared to the Missouri tank top, which has nothing underneath, she wears a white bra. She said, adjusting her shoulder straps. Sugu was suddenly attracted to Matsu again, and began to think wildly, but managed to maintain a sense of clarity. It is estimated that the heat will continue until October and November, until the cold air moves south. It looks like I'm going to be hot again. Matsu sighed and looked down at his cup. Is it hot, Admiral? Hot. Matsu raised the cup and handed it to Sugu's mouth. I have iced plum juice here, please drink some, Admiral. Sugu waved his hand. No need. Why are you so polite? Sugu couldn't resist Matsu, so he finally took a sip, thinking, was this an indirect kiss? Missouri breathed a sigh of relief, looked at Sugu, and laughed. Missouri, why are you laughing? Although there was nothing on Sugu's face, Missouri reached out and touched his face and lips, shaking his head in a funny way, as if treating a child. Sugu touched his face, wondering whether it was rice particles or oil stains. As I kept watching, Saratoga was a little confused. Why are these routines not written in the book? Why are you so skilled? The battle continued, and Mutsu said, Missouri's hair is so beautiful, where was it made? Missouri replied, born. Mutsu touched his tied hair and showed off his beautiful neck. I also thought about perming my hair into waves before, but I still didn't. Missouri lifted her hair and tucked it behind her ears, revealing her crystal earlobes and dangling ruby earrings. In fact, the main thing was her seductive movements. I think of South Dakota. She had wavy hair. She straightened her hair some time ago. It felt so silly. Washington laughed at her all morning, and changed her back the next day. South Dakota is not suitable for black people, Mutsu saw clearly. Missouri said, let me tell you, Mutsu, this guy likes short hair best. I emphasize it again, Sugu said, as long as the person is beautiful, I like it no matter what hairstyle. There is no 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Well, for girls, bald heads are still unacceptable, and the same is true for those with short hair. Forget about weird hairstyles. At most, 2 ponytails are acceptable, but 3 ponytails are not acceptable. Do you want sky-high braids to be so ugly? Suddenly I remembered that you men are better. Missouri bent over and held her face in her hands. You only need to cut your hair short. At most, apply hairspray to take care of it when necessary. Clothes, a suit, and a pair of leather shoes. You can wear it anywhere, as long as you dress fresh, clean, and neatly. That's pretty much it. Mutsu saw Sugu. The admiral always seems to be very casual and doesn't pay much attention to his image. Sugu said, no. There are no big problems, but there are still many details that I haven't paid attention to. I don't know how to shave my stubble every day, and I always have to be reminded to apply hand cream. Look, my skin is so dry. Mutsu saw Sugu's palm, picked up his palm, covered it with both hands. Let me help the admiral apply hand cream from now on. My lips are a little dry too, Missouri said. I have lipstick here. Sugu could understand that everyone carried handbags when going out, which contained various cosmetics and a lot of messy things. But in the governor's mansion, there is no need to carry these things with you. He looked at the hot pants that Missouri was wearing, wondering where they were placed. Here, Missouri said. The lipstick is here. Sugu saw Missouri smiling, her right index finger pointing on her lips, her eyes blinking. Her charm level was off the charts. Taking a breath, Mutsu felt for the first time that this opponent was so powerful. Time flew by and the dinner was over. Mutsu and Missouri can be said to be a good match for each other. They learned a lot from the onlookers, but Saratoga was in a daze. She returned to the room, took out her book, and just glanced at it. She originally thought that there were enough routines, but that was it. Taking a deep breath, Saratoga picked up the book, threw it in the trash can, and lay on the bed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 859. It was just a lost night, but Saratoga recovered the next day. When Lexington was taking out the trash, he saw a book in the trash can. He was curious and took it out to read, showing a smile. Although it encountered difficulties at the beginning, it has now become a success. What's the use of learning so many routines? What's more effective than forcing it? Do you still need to worry about men cheating on you 10 times a night? Even though it was clear that we were evenly matched opponents, they did not choose to call it quits. Mutsu and Missouri continued to tit for tat every day. It would be better to call it a secret war. After all, it had never been on the table. This was several days later. This is in the dense woods outside the town hall. The bright sunshine shoots down beams of light through the dense canopy. Looking up, you can see a golden halo. There is a bird's nest there. Lan raised his head and screamed, thinking that it was too high to climb. Wow, look, what did King Cushing find? Cushing squatted on the ground and saw small red berries growing on the short bushes. Can this be eaten? The insect-catching net was placed on the ground, and the breeding cage was carried behind his back. Xiaozai, wearing a small round straw hat and shorts, looked at the beautiful butterflies landing on the tips of the leaves, held his breath and slowly stretched out his hand. However, when she saw that she had caught the butterfly wings and could use them as specimens, the butterfly flew away because of the noise of the two people. She couldn't help but said, "Don't be so loud. It's always you two. If you keep doing this, I won't call you next time." In fact, the initiator of this event was Lafayette. She only knew how to read comics and didn't want to run around anymore. As if they had made a mistake, Lan and Cushing covered their mouths and nodded repeatedly. Xiaozai emphasized again that she must speak softly and not do it again, so she picked up the insect net. At this time, Lafayette took out the compass from her pocket. In fact, she didn't even know where south and north were, she was just pretending. Besides, everyone has been here many times and will never get lost. Point your finger in one direction, go this way. The insect-catching team continued deeper into the woods. Cushing had forgotten her promise and started yelling again. Lan spoke very quietly along the way, so softly that Xiaozai couldn't hear what she said. "Lan, please speak louder." Lan said, "You said, speak softer." Xiaozai scratched his hair, feeling that Lan was making an argument. U-47 originally wanted to swim, but she followed everyone into the woods wearing dead stock water. She remembered something. U-505, I remember you broke my magnifying glass. When are you going to compensate me? U-505 said, don't U-81 have a magnifying glass? When Xiaozai walked past a big tree with enough people to hug each other, she suddenly thought of something and nodded, hello everyone, I am Tirpitz. Now I want to show you how to survive in the most dangerous place in the world. It's a place where you can survive. In a place like this, if you don't have the right survival skills, you won't even be able to survive for a day. Xiaozai found that everyone was attracted by her words, and she suddenly became proud. She found a bug. Unlike adults who get scared the more they know, she fearlessly stretched out her hand and grabbed it. Hey, look, I caught it. Oh, it struggled hard. Let's cut off its head. The remaining parts can be eaten raw, and its protein content is 6 times that of beef. Of course, if time is not tight, we can grill it first, which will be more delicious. When everyone was about to watch Xiaozai perform eating bugs, Xiaozai nodded thoughtfully, and she handed the bug to Amethyst Quartz. Such a good thing, here it is for you to eat. Amethyst was so angry that she put her hands on her hips and wanted to pick up an umbrella and hit Xiaozai on the head, angrily, you have to eat what you want. Knowing people but not their hearts, I don't know a good heart. Xiaozai shook his head and threw away the bug, because it was not the bug he wanted to catch. One-horned fairy, U-47 was the first to find the target and was the first to gain hunting points. In the afternoon, everyone in the insect-catching team had gained a lot, and they returned to the townhouse. Xiaozai found a glass bottle, put all his loot in it, and found Sugu in the cafe, ready to show off. However, before she started to show off her trophies, she found her admiral looking at a drawing. On the table in front of him were wooden boards, syringes, infusion tubes, wires, etc., as well as many tools, such as needle nose pliers, scissors, tape, glue, etc. A little curious, Admiral, What are you doing? The big mackerel said, the admiral is working as an excavator. It's not an ordinary excavator. Sugu put down the drawings and thought that he had to go to Sichuan show in the morning. It was natural for him to take the little girl with him. When passing by the construction site, he found that they saw the excavator leaving reluctantly, and they decided at that time. It's just a beautiful idea, but it's a little difficult to make, but I definitely won't admit defeat. This is a hydraulic excavator. Ozai responded, not understanding what hydraulic pressure meant. In fact, don't talk about her, even many adults don't understand. Ruhi was holding a cup of pickled plum juice and was watching from the side, wondering what the syringes were for. Like a curious baby, Bumblebee took the drawing Sugu put down and looked at it, only to feel that the lines were a mess. She is completely useless. As a ship girl, she never trains. Her combat ability is at the bottom. She can eat and play but can't work. She doesn't understand anything. The reputation of the perfect maid is not there, so she takes advantage of the cloudy weather to take care of the lawn, so I don't know if she can do it. Missouri, who was quite knowledgeable, didn't know much about it. After all, it was some mechanical knowledge. Now she was holding a syringe, of course the one without a needle. She grabbed Xiaozai's arm and pulled it to her side. Xiaozai, I'll give you an injection. You're so annoying. Xiaozai struggled. She hated Beizai the most. He stole his sister Miao, his admiral, his comics, and bullied others. The second is that Missouri always likes to harass him. He touches his head and pinches his face every day, which is really annoying. Sugu ignored the noisy people next to him. This first, all the parts were prepared in advance. Sugu picked up 2 rectangular wooden boards with many small holes drilled and connected them with screws and nuts. He saw Xiaozai lying on the table, looking at him curiously, and the most interesting thing about showing off was, this is a fighting stick. Kotaku stayed away from Missouri and stood by Bumblebee's side. Sister Bumblebee often plays games with everyone, building sand castles and having water fights with water guns. She still likes it very much. She played with the syringe, then took the syringe and drew a whole tube of water from a basin filled with water nearby. She wanted to ejaculate on Missouri's face, but she didn't dare. What is this? Hydraulic cylinders. Sugu thought about running to the clinic to buy a new one. Xiaozai put down the syringe, but she still didn't understand what it meant. Once idle, he is unwilling to move. But when you are busy and don't know how to rest, you must finish all the work in one go, otherwise you will feel uncomfortable. Sugu explained, whether everyone understood it or not, while assembling the parts. Glue and nails were used to assemble the rocker, connecting rod and can into a bucket. The syringe is filled with water, and the mouth of the tube is put on the infusion tube, which must be secure and sealed. Then the syringe piston is tied to the rocker with tape, and the empty cylinder is tied to the bucket stick. Next is the boom, which is much simpler here. A thick wooden board is the base, and the dry battery is inserted into the round hole of the thick wooden board as the central rotary joint. It took about an hour or two, but Sugu finally assembled the hydraulic excavator. He breathed a long sigh of relief and leaned on the wicker chair. My own admiral has never let anyone down. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is the best admiral in the world. Even though I didn't quite understand why I liked the admiral before, now I know why. Xiaozai was a little excited. Admiral, how do you play this? 4 syringes were tied to the thick wooden board. Sugu pushed one of the syringes, and the boom immediately began to rotate. This controls the direction. He pushed the other syringe again, and the boom raised. This controls up and down. He added push a syringe, this controls digging. Sugu did a simple operation, demonstrated the usage, and debugged it again, and finally completed it. Missouri patted him on the shoulder. Okay. Nonsense, Sugu said, I can't do it. How can you do it? You said you were fat and had asthma. Xiaozai was already eager to give it a try, but the big mackerel that had been waiting beside him for a long time had already stretched out his hand. However, no matter how fast they were not as fast as Ruhi. The girl, it didn't matter that she was a young woman now. Although she was still weird, she still had wearing a headscarf and sweeping the ceiling with a long broom, she looked pretty cool. She was quite playful and snatched away the excavator first. Although it is quite simple and the workmanship is rough, it is not perfect. After all, it is the first time to make it, just to verify the idea. Just make it later, you can polish and paint every part in advance. But the operating principle is quite novel and eye-catching. Xiaozai was so excited that he shouted sweetly, "Sister Ruhi, I want to play." However, Ruhi didn't pay attention at all. She didn't accept this trick. Xiaozai opened her eyes wide and stared at the excavator, but Ruhi played with it for a long time and refused to let go. She turned to look at Sugu, knowing that the admiral loved her the most. "Ruhi, are you still a child?" Unable to stand the pitiful look in Xiaozai's eyes, Sugu abandoned the wedding ship and so on, so Sugu snatched the excavator from the front of Ruhi. The big mackerel said, "Admiral, I go first." Sugu immediately hesitated. He couldn't be too partial. It was really hard to ignore Xiaozai. Sixbai, wearing a little blue dress and a bow-knot headband, walked up to him and waved repeatedly, "Admiral, Admiral." Sugu leaned over, thinking she had some objections. "Admiral, I love you the most," Sixbai said, kissed him on the cheek, and then gently took away the excavator in his hand. "When will you become my brother-in-law?" Sugu was a little confused until Sixbai walked away. He touched his face and thought that he was really a little fairy. He would be awesome when he grows up. He looks similar now, but he will definitely not be a tomboy like Washington in the future. The little house, the big mackerel, and many little Lolita all ran after Sixbai. Seeing how popular the excavator was, Sugu suddenly thought that a charging system would have to be adopted in the future. A good admiral or the best admiral in the world can be used for 1 minute, a hug can be used for 5 minutes, and a kissing can last 10 minutes, more if you sleep with me. I am an evil person. Ruhi saw Sugu's smile. As a wife, how could she not understand her husband? "What are you planning?" Sugu pretended not to understand. "What the hell is your idea?" "My mouth is watering. Am I that kind of person?" "Aren't you?" Ruhi sneered, thinking that he was just obsessed and got on the pirate ship. "You ask why you wear the ring on the ring finger of your left hand all day long, and you don't know why. It's because you can't take it off." Did Xiaozai and the others go hunting for insects again? Sugu saw the glass bottle Xiaozai placed on the sofa and saw many insects inside, including mantises, unicorns, stag beetles, cicadas, scarabs, and a fat white one among them. Big meat bug. He looked at Ruhi again, his eyes lingering on her chest, thoughtfully, and counterattacked from here. "Ruhi, have you ever eaten fried bees?" Fried bees. Ruhi also saw the glass bottle in Sugu's hand. "The larvae and the pupae." "No, Ziwa," he said, "I feel so sick." Sugu whispered in Ruhi's ear, "You can enlarge your breasts." Of course Ruhi knew that Sugu was talking nonsense. There was no such function, so don't ask why. Thinking that she was disgusted with teasing her for having small breasts, she pinched the flesh of his waist without hesitation. "I can fry bees." They were flirting when a voice suddenly appeared. Sugu was almost startled. He turned his head and saw London. "When did you show up here?" "I've always been here." London, wearing a maid outfit and holding a tray in her arms, emphasized again, "I can fry bees." London said, "Put it into the oil pan, push it gently, add some firepower, and fry until golden brown. Add some salt, some pepper, and then some salt and pepper. It will be fragrant." Sugu nodded, non-committal. "Let's make it for everyone to eat next time." "Don't make trouble," Sugu said, Life is precious. Can you give me a chance? London was depressed, thinking that he could still enter the kitchen before. Yuxian was also very enthusiastic about teaching him, and so was Chungqing. But after cooking for myself a few times, I no longer want to teach. He obviously did a good job and made rapid progress. The level of cooking has improved by leaps and bounds, which is inexplicable. Sugu was not afraid of hurting London's self-esteem. He said, after practicing counter-attack for so long, the food she made is edible. The worst thing is that it is a little saltier. Her cooking skills are so poor, she is so unconscious, and she is so self-righteous. There was clearly a recipe, and I stressed many times, what to do first, and then what to do, but you just didn't listen, and in the end everything got messed up, and you were the only one in the entire town. It's not just me, London said. Consultant Su, who else? Another master of dark food production in the tutelage will return soon, which is something no one could have imagined. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 860. You are the worst class of students I have ever taught. This is what many teachers like to say. Of course Sugu has heard it, from elementary school, junior high school, and even university. I really don't know why these people like to say this. This is the most unusual new class of admirals I have ever seen. Deep in the Chuangziu Naval Academy, there was a large banyan tree outside the huge resource warehouse, with Zeppelin standing underneath. How to say? As we enter October, it's time for the new admiral's initial construction. It's not far from Chuangziu, and there happens to be nothing to do in the garrison. Even if there is something to do, unless there is something really important, it will be put off until tomorrow. Sugu still remembered that this time last year, a lost girl built the battleship Vanguard and ran to show off in front of him. In the end, of course I was shocked, and my whole worldview was probably shattered. After asking around, I found out that the other person's name was Okra, and he was usually quite low-key. Ming Ming was very excited when we met, but I don't know if it was because of my relationship that I knew there was a better world. The white shirt and hip-hugging skirt covered her hot figure. Of course, it was still much worse than Helena, who accompanied Sugu. Zeppelin was dressed like an urban white-collar worker. She brushed her mid-length silver hair that hung down to her shoulders, squinted her eyes slightly and looked up at the sky. It was a cloudless sky and the sun was in the center. There was no need to look at the watch. It was definitely still noon. It's over. It's over. Sugu was confused. What's over? Zeppelin said, no need to wait any longer, everyone has left, let's go too. I was standing outside the warehouse. Whenever a new admiral came out with a ship girl, I would guess what kind of ship girl it was, a destroyer or a battleship, and what model it was. It can be inferred from many aspects such as the height, body shape, hair color, etc. of a young Lolita, a girl, or a royal sister. Of course, we can also infer from the expressions of the new admirals that heavy cruisers are worthy of a smile. If they are cheerful and can't hide the smile on their faces, they must be rare ships or battleships. It has been a while since the last admiral brought the ship girl out, and everyone is getting impatient with waiting. Sugu reacted. He looked at his watch. The hour and minute hands were close to 12, no, don't lie to me. I remember that it ended in the afternoon in previous years. It's not yet 12 o'clock. Zeppelin said, that's why I say this is the most unusual new admiral I have ever seen, bar none. It's possible that the build failed, it's possible that the new guy spent most of the day in the warehouse and ended up building a destroyer. Building a capital ship takes hours anyway, no more, no less. It was such a terrible fact. Sugu was even stunned for a moment. Can it be said that with so many newcomers this year, no one has built a capital ship? It started at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it took less than 3 hours until now. In this time, the top is the light ship. Aircraft carrier. The Academy has dedicated people to keep track of what the new admiral has built. Zeppelin had already seen it, but before she could speak, a girl with short blonde hair spoke first. Let me think about it. There are only destroyers, light cruisers, heavy cruisers, and not a single light aircraft carrier. It seems that someone built a heavy cannon. That heavy gun was the Abercrombie, and her bangs were so long that they blocked her eyes. She definitely couldn't see the road. Her ship's equipment was a big fort, which she carried like a skull bag. She bent down when carrying it. It's definitely heavy. Sugu turned to the giant statue, knowing very well that this chatty girl couldn't stop once she started speaking. By the way, I thought it would be easy to catch the boat, but now that Nagato is about to get it, she hasn't joined the garrison yet. Seeing that she was about to die, he said, I think of our generation, apart from me who built the city of York, there was another person. I remember that he and I almost had a fight before, but I can't remember his name now. He has an Ark Royal. Besides the two of us, there must be someone else who built a capital ship. Zeppelin said, your new generation of admirals are all very lucky. So Colossus started again. When you graduated, it seemed that I hadn't woken up yet. I think of when I woke up, it was almost the Chinese New Year. I just woke up. I couldn't see anything on the sea, so I just woke up. I kept sailing towards one place, and then I arrived at Zhuangziu. I didn't understand anything at the time. No, I already understood a lot of things. Anyway, I walked around the destination and met the dean, Zhan Xian. I called her sister and she touched me. The head looks very happy. The new admiral has finished building, and we are ready to leave. Jia and the others went to the store and haven't come back yet. You go and see them, and we can have lunch together later. Sugu sent the Colossus away, finally feeling safe. At 1 o'clock, he turned to Zeppelin, and his instructor at the time laughed, there is not a single battleship in this class. It's really hard to compare to what I don't know. I'll be shocked by the comparison. It's a bit miserable. It's not a bit miserable, it's very miserable. A sigh sounded behind him, and Sugu turned around to see a woman with long brown hair. After all, there are not many people I know personally. They are acquaintances. Langley, the shipgirl branch where the company is located, has a quite big forehead. Lafitte always calls him Lightbulb. Of course he didn't dare to scream like that, and he wasn't a child. That was an absolute taboo for the other party. Langley, why are you here? I also came to see how the newcomers are doing. Langley looked downcast. I'm disappointed. Langley continued, now that a new deep-sea flagship has appeared, the power of the deep-sea ship girls is getting stronger and stronger. But we are getting weaker and weaker. The new admirals are not as good as the previous ones. Africans are in power. I really don't know why. Manage. It doesn't matter, I'm here, Sugu said. Langley glanced at Sugu and had to admit that the other party's garrison was terrifyingly powerful. Even his eldest sister's enterprise number would not be ranked in the other garrison's garrison. Appearing from the opponent's garrison, now encountering the powerful deep-sea ship girl, there is no need for the battle team to go back and forth to put out fires, just leave it to the opponent. She nodded, thanks to you. Sugu said, that, I have helped you so much, and the company doesn't know how to promise it. I've written it down. I'll go back and talk to my eldest sister. Other than getting a hero plane to stop my mouth. Sugu glanced at Langley. Although it was only a light aircraft carrier, it was not very powerful. I had one before, and when I was tidying up the cabin, I dismantled it without hesitation. How about I give you the hero machine, and then you join our garrison? Langley thought for a while. Your admirals have many tricks, especially you. The company is right, you must be careful at all times. If you don't want to, let it go. You're still slandering people. Sugu waved his hand, and he suddenly paused. You were just talking about the new deep-sea flagship, right? Yes. Deep-sea flagships have appeared one after another, and the latest one is the deep-sea armored aircraft carrier Tahoe, which has quite exaggerated armor. In fact, I don't know if it is a new one. It may have appeared a long time ago, but it has just stayed in the depths of the sea and has not appeared in everyone's eyes. Anyway, the deep-sea Yamato was among the first ones to appear. The first blood of the deep-sea brave deep-sea dragon was obtained by his own garrison. Sugu curiously asked, "What other deep-sea flagship has appeared? Why don't I know?" "Don't you know? There may be a meeting recently, and you will know when the time comes. It may not necessarily be a meeting, it may just be reported in the newspaper." Langley thought for a while and said, "We are not sure what kind of deep-sea flagship it is, and we have not fought. Anyway, she was born with 2 horns, one of which was broken. She had white hair, red eyes, and an explosive figure. It must be a battleship. It is said that the ship's uniform is somewhat similar to that of the deep-sea Yamato, with 2 heads of terrifying beasts on the left and right. It's very impressive, and just looking at it makes people feel frightened. It's very similar to deep-sea Yamato." Sugu thought for a while, and suddenly laughed. "Isn't it because deep-sea Yamato has evolved?" "It's possible," Langley said. "When the time comes, the first person she will look for is you to take revenge on you. Welcome her to come to my garrison again." Sugu thought to himself that if it was still before, he would definitely feel scared, but now apart from the Lion and the Vanguard, his own powerful ship girl has basically returned to the garrison. Everyone attacks together and has the determination to defend the garrison. It can be said to be buff. As long as it is not the deep-sea flagship star team, there is nothing to be afraid of. It is just rewards and medals. Zeppelin rubbed her forehead. She had already regarded herself as a member of the garrison, and Sugu was her admiral. She didn't mind complaining. "You have been thinking about Yamato Fukumai all day long." Sugu said, "It's a pity that we can't fish the deep-sea flagship, otherwise we would definitely fish her out. Fortress Heim's paintings, figurines, and standing signs are the most popular, followed by deep-sea turpits, and deep-sea akagakaga. In recent years, there have been new figures of Yamato Fukumai with one of his horns broken off, a naked and aggrieved duck sitting on the sea with his hands folded, and it is said that demand exceeds supply." Langley said with a smile, "If you can join the deep-sea camp, your admirals will be welcome to join us. I didn't have a choice before, but now I want to be a deep-sea admiral." Sugu said, Maybe one day I will meet Fortress G, and I can successfully bail out the ship with my sharp tongue." Helena crossed her arms, she giggled, and interjected, "Do you have the kind of tongue that licks broken bones?" Sugu turned to Helena little by little, his face expressionless. "I was wrong, it was just a talk." Helena didn't know she was wrong at all. She was getting more and more excited now, but she didn't know when one day it would jump in Lexington's face and be taught. She nodded. "For what?" "Yes, as long as you can, go ahead and catch it, as long as you don't bring it back to the garrison. I don't care if the admiral keeps a few wild women outside." "Real?" "It doesn't matter to me, Lexington doesn't know. She must have nothing to do with her." Sugu thought to himself that Lexington had persuaded him to marry a few more people, such as Yuxian, Missouri, etc., and now there was another Mutsu. "I always say that for men, the less they get, the more they like them. Once you get it, it will be boring for a few days. First get a fortress princess, and then a deep-sea Yamato. I didn't like her very much before, but I have developed feelings for her and developed feelings for her." Helena said, "I can understand Fortress G, but you are the enemy of deep-sea Yamato. It would be better if she doesn't kill you." "I have never appeared in front of her, how does she know that I am her enemy?" Helena asked, and with a sharp tongue. "No," Sugu said, "she seems to be easy to deceive. Just say a few nice words and she will become a loyal dog immediately. It's not that troublesome." Helena said, "It's a pity that I don't have a choice, I can't be the admiral of the deep sea. Sugu suddenly lost his strength. Maybe, who knows. Langley suddenly remembered something, and she complained, the recent news, you say it is funny or not, I don't know where it was found that there is a temple worshipping the deep sea flagship, praying for peace, and praying that the deep sea ship girl will not appear. A bunch of stupid people, Sugu said bluntly. Langley thought for a while and said, I remember that there were people who preached the end of the world. The deep sea ship girls were sent by the gods to destroy mankind. A cult that makes money, Sugu said, sell some indulgences. Langley laughed, it was destroyed by the gendarmerie. The leader is an illiterate farmer. It should be said that he is a fisherman, and there are many people who believe in it. There are too many fools and not enough liars, Sugu thought to himself, it has been the same everywhere throughout the ages. In the world he knew, everyone was basically educated, and there were still people who believed that Wi-Fi had lethal radiation, otherwise they would prevent the construction of base stations, which would eventually lead to a community there is no signal, or a rumor spreads rapidly in the circle of friends. Brother-in-law. Colossus came back soon, and then Sugu invited Langley to have lunch together, but he was rejected. Saying goodbye to Langley, everyone went to have lunch and then started shopping. Every time I go to Sichuan show, I must buy a magazine because everyone likes to read it. We don't buy the food specifically, we leave it to the procurement. Soon after I returned to the town hall, it was already afternoon. Sci-fi, give me a drink. During lunch in the evening, Sugu saw Sci-fi holding a large glass of beer, with his upper lip covered in foam, like a beard. He likes this tomato-level little Lolita with a cute round face, especially when she wears the semicircle-like barriered ship outfit on her head. He insists on her shouting Kuma and rubbing her face. It's just a pity that Seongji has it. I don't know where Sister Huhu, Sister Nayuniu, and little Tutu are, otherwise we could just make up Seongji and her friends. It was at this moment, when everyone was eating, that no one expected it. A blonde girl was wearing a red newsboy cap and a one-shoulder white dress. She had a trolley case beside her and stood at the door of the cafeteria with her hands on her hips, her expression a bit resentful. Guam was the first to notice the girl standing by the door. She didn't react at all. Houston. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 861. Mine Spay held the big wine glass high, with only half of the beer left in the big wine glass. Sugu didn't like drinking at all. He drank a little red wine occasionally just to accompany the Prince of Wales. He would have a drink, then turn off the light and go to sleep. I'll just drink a little, Sipe, don't be so stingy. Spay was sitting on the bench. Although she was a battle cruiser, she was compact and quite short, about the same level as the supply ship Suk Bader and Odin. Her legs were still dangling from the ground. Yelling, if it doesn't work, it won't work. I remember Bismarck said that you can only drink 1 glass of beer a day. Sugu snickered, let me think about it, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? It should be like the day before yesterday. You ask Sister Kent for it this morning. A glass of beer, and in the afternoon I ask Sister Santiago for a glass of beer. Although she ran out immediately with the beer, I saw her. Kaga, Prince of Wales, Scharnhorst, Kirov, etc., they like to drink. Because they are adults, it doesn't matter if they drink more every day. Of course, it can't be too exaggerated. Even if you are a ship girl, it doesn't matter how much you drink, you won't get cirrhosis of the liver, but as long as you are a little Lolita, you have a daily limit. Sipe lowered her head. She had indeed done this before, and it could even be said that she often did this. There is no other way, a glass of beer is not enough. Where is Bismarck? Sugu asked himself, turning his head and looking for Bismarck everywhere in the cafeteria. In fact, he had already seen the other person sitting not far away, teaching Beizai a lesson for some reason. He is just pretending and is currently under pressure. Sci-fi put down the big wine glass and said quickly, okay, I'll drink it for you. Sugu chuckled and said funnily, but I don't want to drink beer now. I want to see someone get spanked. Admiral, don't tell Sister Bismarck, okay, Sipe could be said to be the most timid in the whole town. She tugged on Sugu's clothes, as long as you don't tell Sister Bismarck, I can do whatever you want me to do. Sugu always felt that what Sci-fi said was a bit bad. He seemed to have read it somewhere. It seemed that it was the kind of book that Baizai often read. When the heroine is caught and threatened, it means that the heroine has turned into a sow. He rubbed his hands and smiled mischievously. He looked at the little Loli's cute and rosy face, which looked like an apple. He wanted to take a bite. Is it really okay to do anything? Yes, Sci-fi nodded, thinking that the worst he could do was rub his face and touch his head, or at most just give him a hug. Admiral, if you are an adult, you won't play like this because it can easily cause misunderstandings, but it doesn't matter to the little Loli. Just when Sugu stretched out his hand to wrap his arms around Sci-fi's shoulders, he heard a voice. He turned around and saw that Guam, who was not short-sighted just for good looks, was covering her mouth and snickering while wearing flat glasses. Next to her was a blonde girl he didn't recognize with a straight face. This is our Admiral, you remember, right? Oh, he definitely didn't threaten the little girl to do anything bad or do anything perverted, hooligan or idiotic just now. Guam finally stopped smiling and stretched out his hand. Introducing the girl next to him, Admiral, Houston, this is our Houston, she is back now. Sugu glanced at the blonde girl, then lowered his head, looked around again, then looked away again, a little at a loss, and finally remembered to withdraw his hand from Sci-fi. After all, I have experienced a lot, and I shouldn't be like this, but I really don't know what to say, so I paused. Houston, welcome home. The scene was a little awkward for a moment. The sound of burping came from Sci-fi, who drank the beer in one go. Houston glanced at Sci-fi and then at Sugu. Admiral is still the same. Thanks to Sci-fi for allowing her to sleep with her favorite admiral at night, Sugu slowly came over and said, don't make false accusations. I am a gentleman. Houston is back, the Japanese are just watching from afar, and most of the Americans are surrounding them. How did you get it back, was Nevada's question. She was a little curious about where Houston got the news. She went back to the old townhouse and saw the big words painted in red paint on the ruins. It said that the townhouse had been moved to somewhere, and the admiral was back. I still saw news about the town government and the admiral that had been published tirelessly in newspapers and periodicals. Are you alone? Seeing only Houston, the result was positive. Washington couldn't help but ask, and took the opportunity to touch South Dakota's head while her attention was on Houston. Now most of the people in the garrison have returned, but there are still some left. Among them, there are several heavy cruisers belonging to the American system, and the destroyer Keeling is missing. Sitting next to Shugu, Saratoga thought of the Lion again. It's still a wedding ship. What a poor child. Until now, he has not returned to the town hall. It definitely didn't sink, so it would never come back. Such a powerful battleship couldn't sink so easily unless it committed suicide. It's definitely not because he doesn't want to come back after knowing the news. It's absolutely impossible for such a thing to happen. Therefore, there is no fate. It is obvious that no matter how far apart the admiral and the ship girl are, they will meet for various reasons. Why did it become like this? Tennessee said, it feels like you're a little fatter. Sci-fi ran away early, and Sugu hugged lowly North Carolina who came from behind. He didn't care about anything. Lowly and Yuji were basically the same person. They had the same memories. He nodded and felt the same way. He still remembered Houston's portrait in the game. He had neat medium-length blonde hair, a big cap, a bra, a vest, and hot pants. All in all, he was cool and handsome. It can be said that the game is mainly for the players. Except for a few people such as Dumpling Essex, everyone is exposed as much as they want. Children cannot control it at all and must be harmonious. Nowadays, it is reality. Everyone has their own ideas, so they will naturally be more conservative, but no matter what, the girl next door in front of me is not right. My sister, I really miss you, Northampton said, and was criticized by everyone present. Of course it was a joke. As a sister, she failed to fulfill her responsibilities at all and eloped with Bumblebee alone. Even though Bumblebee is a good friend, he's also a fool, he's easily tricked and bullied, and he needs to be taken care of, but it's still a little too much. What did Houston do when he left the garrison? How is it going? You haven't eaten yet. While everyone was chattering, Sugu looked at Houston, who was sitting opposite him, and the first thing he thought about was whether he had felt sorry for her. Houston is not a powerful battleship, just an ordinary heavy cruiser. Since it can be modified, the required level is not very high, so of course I practiced it well. Instead of picking up equipment, it was filled with equipment. It's not like treating Ayanamai, who made a promise but failed to fulfill it and withheld the ring. It's not like treating Helena, just poking her every now and then when I think of her. I thought about Didion again. After spending so many resources, it still has not been built. There is no little skirt to lift. After everyone talked for a while, they remembered to eat, and then they had to arrange accommodation. It's not like a little Lolita who can just stick it in any dormitory with multiple people. By the time everything was done, it was completely dark. It was the next day to introduce Houston to the town hall. Even though Northampton is the older sister, the task still falls on Sugu. At present, it seems that the two sisters are not that close, and in the final analysis, the relationship between sisters is still the relationship between admirals, otherwise it is nothing. The huge garrison would collapse without an admiral. It started with the office, then two dormitory buildings, then the warehouse, garage, lighthouse, and finally ended at the coffee shop, where you can rest directly. Dei Feng was writing a novel and Bulletin Tiao was checking information for her. The two of them looked like they were about to kiss each other. A group of guys were playing a game of kings, and number 1 West Virginia gave number 5 Essex a kiss. Sugu remembered that he could enjoy many benefits by playing with them in the past. Later, they discovered that being a king means they can watch the fun, but the royal power is not eternal. Everyone has the opportunity to be a king, and they all ask for kisses and hugs. Only the admiral has benefits, and everyone inevitably suffers. In the end, they are all gone. It's easy for the admiral to leave. You'd never imagine what the garrison would be like at that time. Houston looked at everyone's happy faces, and she suddenly felt a little touched. It's a hot day, but I can't feel any warmth, no smiles, only endless quarrels. There was crying everywhere. The departure of the first person in the end triggered an avalanche. In a short time, everyone left, not wanting to stay in such a sad place anymore. Sugu had already heard about this, but he had not experienced it, so it was not so profound after all. But I felt a lot afterwards, like seeing Bazai for the first time. Another time I couldn't sleep at night, so I got up. Standing by the window, I saw Lexington suddenly getting up from the bed, shouting Admiral in a panic, and even fell down. Finally, I saw Lexington hugging him tightly and crying, asking for explanation. He learned that she had a nightmare about leaving, and was scared when she woke up to find that the Admiral was not there. That day I held her gently and talked to her all night long. Why did Kent entertain you? Ask Atlanta. So do the Raiders. She only makes a guest appearance to entertain, and she is usually the pastry chef. Sugu has always liked Raiders, but of course not the kind that men and women like. Well, even men and women like it very much. The girl has medium long pink hair, an unshakable ponytail, and the headband that ties her hair is always raised up, like bunny ears. She is cute and cute. Her figure is definitely not bad. Compared to Fuzu and others, she is tightly wrapped in a yukata. She likes to open her bra. She is especially good at showing off her cuteness with malicious intent. The most classic move is to tilt her head, clench her right hand into a small fist and knock it, and then stick out the tip of her tongue. He likes Raider mainly because Raider used to own a candy store. Although her skill in making snacks is average, no one can match her skill in making chocolate. The little loli also likes chocolate, and she can do anything for chocolate. So as long as you control her, you also control the distribution of chocolate, and then control the little loli. Of course it can't be too blatant, but there is always a way. Sister Raider, I want to eat chocolate. There is none left. U-47, it was his turn to appear at this time. As long as you kiss the Admiral will ask Sister Raider to make chocolates. If the little loli's daily chocolate quota was directly exploited, it would easily lead to a major rebellion. But adopting a reward mechanism is always beneficial. I can also be a pastry chef in the future, Houston said. No need, one Raider is enough. Sugu had already heard from London what level Houston was, a big shot in the dark cooking world. It's been so long, so stop looking at people with the same old eyes. London said so. I'm not British. 2. Hey, what are you talking about? Just say London, don't say British. Guangrong heard this and she was very angry. Sugu nodded. Apart from London, the British department could still be saved. The craftsmanship of the Prestige is passable, but the perfect head maid cannot be judged by common sense. The little maid counterattacked after so much training, and now the food she cooked was barely edible. In order to please her, she bit her teeth and ate the food she cooked, but in the end she didn't feel any discomfort. Where's the cocoa powder? And the cocoa butter? Cocoa powder and cocoa butter are essential ingredients for making chocolate and are basically not needed for making other snacks. Not long after, the voice that sounded in the back kitchen of the coffee shop was not the Raider's slightly squeaky voice, but a clear, crisp, and confident voice. The owner of the voice was from Houston. You actually know about cocoa powder and cocoa butter. The attacker wore a plaid apron and looked at Houston squatting by the cupboard. I thought you only melted and shaped the chocolate you bought. Don't underestimate people, Houston said. Well, let's start with the simple ones. There are good chocolates anywhere. The attacker's shoulders slumped, and in the end he didn't say anything. He just asked, what chocolate are you going to make? Houston blinked. Brownies, truffles, or liqueur, said the Raider. I like to make chocolate roses for the Admiral. Ordinary chocolate is fine. Yes, it would be difficult for you to do that. The Raiders were a little worried. First put the chopped chocolate into a large bowl, then find a steamer and heat the water. Place the large bowl on the steamer, and then you can stir. When heating insulated water, be sure not to exceed 55 degrees. Otherwise, if the chocolate is overheated, the water and oil will easily separate and form lumps. Houston couldn't care less. You don't need to say so much, I understand. It's been stirring for so long, why isn't it ready yet? It's a little slow, but I still need to increase the fire. For a long time, Sugu looked at the chocolate placed in front of him. He heard Houston say, Admiral, don't be so nervous, it's just a little mushy on the outside. He calmly called York City, but he got I'm not stupid, why don't you eat it? Answer, thinking that you are so powerful now, so I could only call Quincy, but was stopped by New Orleans. Finally, I saw Houston picking up the chocolate with an unhappy face and saying, are you so worried? 5 seconds. Empress Zhong took a deep breath, tug away. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 862. It has been several days since Houston returned to the garrison. The weather is still hot, but it is still much cooler than before. You must cover yourself with a quilt at night, otherwise you will easily catch a cold. This is inside the coffee shop of the town hall. Veneto is drinking coffee with his legs crossed and reading a magazine. It's just a pity that no matter how mature she is dressed in black gloves, a suit shirt, black silk suspenders, a mesh hat, or how serious her expression is, her flat Lolita figure ruins everything. The blonde little lowly angel Kamichia sat next to Veneto. She looked left and right to see who dared to be disrespectful to the eldest sister. Very good, there is no one without eyes, she nodded with relief and felt relieved. If this were a comic, the exclamation point would have been raised. Kamichia saw Kent holding a ferocious tiger and walking over with a plate of snacks, which were her favorite snacks. So it's you. She slapped the table and whispered, "Stop, that person just now, stop it quickly." When Kent heard the sound, he stopped and looked at Karmicha, confused, thinking that he had not provoked this little loli. What's wrong with Karmicha? Kamichia crossed her arms, tilted her neck, and raised her chin very high. "It was all pretending, you actually dare to be disrespectful to my eldest sister?" Kent black question mark face. "Where are you going with the tiramisu?" Kamichia swallowed and knocked on the table, "Put it down and put it here. Our eldest sister wants to eat it." Kent hesitated, "But..." "What a but, there is no but, put it down quickly." Kamichia's expression was very fierce, but to be honest, it wasn't scary at all, it was just cute. Boom. "You are very good at pulling tiger skins to raise flags." Veneto naturally heard Kamichia's words, and she hit the little Lolita on the head with her fist. "I don't eat tiramisu, obviously." "You want to eat?" "Copy that." Kamichia saluted Veneto, then turned to Kent and said, "Listen up, the eldest sister doesn't want to eat at all, it's me who wants to eat. Remember, the eldest sister doesn't want to eat at all." "Eat?" Kent is not an idiot, of course he knows the virtues of Carmichael. But Kamichia repeatedly emphasized at this time that she couldn't help but look at Veneto. Could it be that she really wanted to eat it, but she was too arrogant? Veneto didn't explain, knowing that the description was getting darker and darker. She just smiled and gave Kamichia a hard slap. After being beaten, Kamichia put his head in his hands. She chuckled, and when she saw Kent, she turned serious again. "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen the elder sister teaching the younger sister? Let me tell you, the elder sister is willing to hit me. This is because she is getting close to me. You haven't seen her yet. I have to fight. Well, look again, and snatch your big tiger away." Kent hugged his own ferocious tiger tightly with one hand, only this was absolutely not allowed. Looking at the tiramisu in Kent's hand, Kamichia was a little greedy. "Okay, eldest sister doesn't want to eat tiramisu, it's me who wants to eat it." "Well, I want to eat it, will you give it to me?" "Today I'll just leave it here. I'm Kamichia, my eldest sister is Veneto, and my eldest brother is the Admiral, you can take care of it yourself." "Who wants to eat my food?" Before Veneto could teach Kamichia his teeth again, a hand suddenly stretched out and took the tiramisu from Kent's hand. York had seen Kent a long time ago. He didn't know why she took so long to come over. He was curious and came to see what Kamichia said. I didn't." The moment Kamichia saw York, she hid behind Veneto, holding her head and shivering. "Avil, it's Avil." Carmichael's fear of York still has to be said from a historical perspective. Kamichia was discovered by British aircraft while towing the destroyer Artillera, which had been damaged in the previous battle, back to port. Afterwards, 2 cruisers and 3 destroyers, including York, came after hearing the news. Carmichael had no choice but to abandon Adigriere and retreat on her own to save her own life. The abandoned Adigriere was subsequently torpedoed and sunk by York. Aviel, who was sitting on the side reading a book, only felt that there was no danger of disaster. Of course York would not believe Camichia's words. She didn't want to let Camichia go just like that. She didn't care about Veneto at all and caught Camichia. He pulled his feet out of the sofa. Camichia shouted, "Sister, help me, help me." Veneto paid no attention. Camichia made a heartbreaking voice, "Sister, you are my favorite eldest sister, and I am the little sister who loves you most. Sister, I have sacrificed my life for you, and I have saved my blood for you. Have you forgotten just like that? Who is helping you beat papaya milk every day, who is beating peanuts and pig's feet for you every day? Please, don't abandon me." Veneto took a deep breath and finally resisted the urge to hit. At the same time, York dragged Camichia in front of him and rubbed her face fiercely until her face turned red. York left, and Camichia finally recovered. Of course she would not say anything wrong to Veneto. She turned to Aviel, "Avi, it's a shame that I've been so good to you, but you didn't help your sister. I don't have a sister like you. I will send you to the eldest brother's bed tomorrow. He has missed you for a long time." "When did you treat Aviel well?" Veneto stood up and upheld justice. "When did you not bully her?" Camichia didn't realize it, and she snorted, "Avi, since the eldest sister speaks for you, I will let you go for the time being, huh? Why don't you thank the eldest sister soon?" Aviel felt a little aggrieved, "Thank you, Sister Veneto." Veneto held his forehead and thought, "Aviel, why are you joining in the fun?" Beijing-style Ugolini was reading a magazine, and Camichia thought for a while and ran to the corner of the coffee shop. There is a bookshelf with various books and comics on it. There is also a newspaper and magazine display rack next to it. The latest newspapers and magazines are all placed here. They have been waiting for a while and no one has read them, so they are placed in the library. Camichia's eyes lit up when she saw the cover of a magazine. She quickly picked up the magazine and ran to Veneto, "Sister, look, look, look quickly. What are you looking at?" "5 behaviors make breasts smaller and smaller." Camichia shook her head. In life, there are always women complaining that their breasts are not full enough, and some people actually have shrinkage. In order to make their breasts fuller, beauty-loving women embark on a long breast enlargement journey. First we should find out the cause of breast shrinkage and then prescribe the right medicine. Veneto remained silent and non-committal, but anyone with a discerning eye could see her ears moving. "The first reason for breast shrinkage is drinking too much coffee." Camichia stared at the coffee cup in Veneto's hand. "Scientists say that if girls drink more than 3 cups of coffee a day, their breasts will become smaller." Really, the voice belonged to Aviel, who had always been troubled by her breasts being too big. "Of course it's true. As a little girl, she still believes in books." Camichia said, "The book says it all, don't you still believe it?" One of Veneto's hands was shaking. No wonder he couldn't do it no matter how hard he tried. "Is this the reason? But coffee, I don't want to give it up. Without this, what is the meaning of life?" Camichia looked at Veneto, and she said earnestly, "Sister, Camichia advises you not to drink coffee anymore. It's so flat now, like a poached egg, you can take off the ship the plane is on board. If you continue to drink, will you still get it?" The big Lolita Antonio was obviously a person without moral integrity. She snickered, raised her hand and said, "Sister, I will report it, I will report Camichia. One day when you were taking a nap, she took a toy airplane. It dances on your chest, saying that the carrier-based aircraft is about to take off, saying that Taliedo Steepa is ready and will land now. If it is Carmichael, this is definitely a possibility." Veneto looked at Camichia little by little, his whole body trembling, and he could no longer be angry. Kamichia noticed something was wrong. She backed away and shook her head, but it was of no use. With a wow sound, Kamichia ran away, and Veneto put down his coffee cup and ran after him while holding up the rolled-up magazine. Kamichia disappeared into the corridor, and Veneto was standing by the corridor. Just as she was about to catch up, she remembered something. Kamichia will have to teach him a lesson sooner or later, but there is no rush. Now there is something that makes people a little concerned. Veneto opened the magazine in her hand. She first read the reasons that could cause breast shrinkage, and then looked at the methods of breast enlargement. She nodded subconsciously. She really learned something. I thought that when I grow up in the future, I can become a plump royal sister in one go. It's a pity that Sugu was not in the coffee shop and missed the good show. If it's still a game, it's too difficult to get a set of costumes. It also requires the approval of the operating company and the artist's time to draw. Sugu likes wedding dress painting, no matter who it is. However, before he gave up, he only had his wife Lexington and his sister-in-law Saratoga. There are a lot of fan wedding dresses on the internet, and he has always liked the Bazai wedding dress one. It's no longer a game, it's reality now. A ship girl can have one outfit and one image every day. The most powerful person Sugu has ever seen is Richelieu. Although she doesn't have many clothes, she is good at matching them and has many patterns. Wearing sunglasses, a shirt, and pencil pants, with his hands in his pants pockets, he couldn't be more handsome. Windbreakers, blouses, and pencil skirts make her a chic and elegant girl. With her long blonde hair tied up in a bun and a red backless dress, she looked extremely gorgeous. It's not like Missouri and others. Yellow stockings are very magical, but of course the stockings only come in two varieties, white and black. Most of the time, Yuxian wears high-cut cheongsam, or hanfu, or tangfu. Of course, Sugu had taken her shopping for clothes, and also helped her buy them. He knew all the height and measurements of everyone in the town hall. So there are actually quite a few clothes like shirts, jeans, hot pants, and dresses full of lace and ruffles. When her long black hair was not tied up, but let down, she wore a wide-brimmed hat with a big flower on it, a white Lolita dress, white gloves that reached her elbows, and a pair of white feet. The high-heeled stroppy sandals are really amazing. It's a pity that yukata and kimono like Flying Eagle are rarely worn. But being able to change your image at will is not always a good thing. Yuxian, how can I say hello to you? Behind the dormitory building, Sugu saw that Yuxian was wearing a big straw hat, a grey long coat, and sleeves. He had just come out of the vegetable field with a hoe and was standing under the big banyan tree. Below, spots of sunlight fall on the body. Although she is still beautiful and a beautiful woman, she still feels a little concerned about her. By the way, I don't know how effective a similar costume change would be in the game. Admiral, what do you want to say? Yuxian saw Sugu and wiped her sweat with her sleeve. You know what I want to say. Sugu thought to himself that he had already mentioned it several times. If there is no need to grow vegetables, just buy them from outside. There are so many people in the guardhouse, no matter how much you grow, you will never have enough to eat. Don't worry if you grow it yourself. Yuxian paused, and it's not for them to eat, it's for the admiral to eat. Sugu was a little moved, but still said, I don't like vegetables, I don't like meat. You can't do it without eating vegetables. Sugu waved his hand. Of course, I won't eat ordinary vegetables, but I will definitely eat the dishes made by Yuxian. Yuxian showed a smile. Sugu looked Yuxian up and down and started to laugh. Really, the Yuxian in my impression is a gentle lady from the Jiangnan water town, but also a talented woman. This is not the Yuxian I want at all. Yuxian suddenly blinked and smiled playfully. Isn't it said that working people are the most glorious? Normally, he always acted like he could not retaliate against his country's hatred and his family's hatred, but when he suddenly became so naughty, Sugu was completely attracted by Yuxian's cuteness. Okay, I've finished my work. Then the admiral comes here. Are you hungry? Yuxian said. The admiral just said that if you want to eat whatever food Yuxian cooks, let's make a stir-fried cabbage. It's good to stir-fry cabbage. The simpler it is, the more skill it requires, Sugu thought to himself. Just saying, I'm not hungry, I just don't have anything to do, and I just happened to get here. Yuxian took off his straw hat. Then let's perform for the admiral. The admiral wants to listen to Guhan or Pipa. How about opera? Speaking of which, I can also perform opera. Oh. Susankija, although he can only sing a few lines, Sugu thought that it was because he had read the novel and had some impressions. Later, he heard it on TV and wrote it down. I remember Atlanta also sang a few lines. I guess it was taught by Admiral. No, she learned it secretly. Sugu thought to himself that he had only sung in front of the little Lolita. Although opera is just my first glimpse into the art, there is still no problem with the song Hongyang Cave. Sugu said, I haven't heard of it. Then I'll sing. No, forget it, Sugu said. It feels like it's really against the norm for you to dress like this and then sing some opera. Yuxian looked down and became distressed. Sugu suddenly said, I feel like Yuxian has become a lot more cheerful. Really? Yuxian lowered his head and became gentle again, because the admiral is by his side. It's a bit embarrassing, obviously I didn't do anything. Yuxian thought of this sentence for a moment. The autumn wind is clear, the autumn moon is bright, the fallen leaves gather and disperse, and the jackdaws roost again. I don't really understand, Sugu said. What about the back? Isn't the admiral very powerful? Yuxian said. I haven't heard of the rest. What's so great about me? Sugu laughed, thinking that on the internet, many people receive gifts from girls, whether it's a book, a greeting card, or something else, or if there's a number on it, or in Japanese that they can't understand. Or which country's language is spoken. Usually a question is asked. Remind you, don't play this kind of trick, otherwise I will treat all the words that I don't understand, the words that I can't understand, and the codes that I can't decipher confessed. Yuxian smiled and said nothing, and then said, I'm going to take a shower and change my clothes. Admiral, are you done? Yuxian left, and a sudden voice sounded. Sugu turned around and saw Lexington, standing inside the window. Then I remembered that the office was on the first floor of the dormitory building, and I felt a little guilty. Sugu was intent on explaining, but Lexington interrupted him and said, I didn't want to disturb you, but Admiral, I have your telegram. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 863. When Sugu got the telegram, the sun was still shining in the sky, but looking at the floor clock in the office, it was already afternoon. At this point, it is definitely not possible to rush to the Kanyang branch where the company is located. There is still a little distance between the two sides. He rushed there the next day, and it was already morning when he arrived. You go ahead, we won't go, Helena waved. She wasn't going to meet the company anymore, she wasn't too familiar with it. Okay, Sugu said, let's go to Missouri. When going to other places, Sugu likes to bring prestige. After all, he is the perfect head maid. Not only does she take care of others, she is also extremely considerate and understanding. Even if she doesn't speak, she knows what she wants as soon as she raises her hand. But here, I still have to go to Missouri. She is a good friend and best friend of the company. Although the two quarrel from time to time, they are keen on selling each other's people. When he found the company's office, the door was open. Sugu saw her sitting on the sofa in the corner, pouring black tea with a teapot, then adding 2 cubes of sugar and starting to stir. Sugu knocked on the door. This was a basic courtesy and signaled his arrival. Why are you so polite? The tea is ready. Enterprise crossed his legs and took a sip of tea. He raised his head and saw Sugu. You are finally here. Sugu saw the company cross their legs and thought about an invincible pair of legs. I took a few bites of rice and set off immediately. Didn't you come last night? You forgot to expedite the telegram. Missouri sat down next to the Enterprise and found a clean teacup to pour himself tea. Sugu sat down on the side chair and asked, "What's the matter?" The Enterprise raised his eyebrows. "I can't come to you if I have nothing to do." "Of course, do you miss me?" Sugu saw a map spread on the coffee table, and chess pieces that looked like deep-sea flagships were placed on it. He thought that he went to the academy a few days ago to watch the newcomers build, and then met when I arrived at Langley. I heard her say that a new deep-sea flagship had appeared. The outfit was surprisingly similar to the deep-sea Yamato. It was probably for this kind of thing. Shameless Enterprise said. She stood up and walked to the desk. She opened the drawer and took out a few photos and handed them to Sugu. Sugu had just taken the photos, and before he started to look at them, Missouri walked up to him and lay on his shoulder, so he gave some pictures to Missouri. Sugu looked at the photo in his hand again, and saw a tall lady with a red light all over her body. Her appearance was 70–80% similar to deep-sea Yamato, and her ship uniform was also 78% similar. Each hand had a ferocious steel head. Behemoth head. If Fukumai Yamato is purple cabbage, then she is spicy cabbage. Sugu finished looking at the photo in his hand and exchanged it with Missouri. After looking at the others, he raised his head and said, "I heard Langley say a few days ago that there is a new deep-sea flagship, and she is the one." The company said, "It has been confirmed, the second Yamato-class ship Musashi, the deep-sea Musashi." Consultant Su, "What then? We only got the news recently. It was given to us by another ship girl branch." The company finished drinking the black tea, thought for a while, reached out and picked up a chess piece and placed it on an island on the map. "The deep-sea Musashi was the first. The place where it appeared is here, and some of the photos you have in your hands were taken at that time." Sugu looked at the map. That was the place where the Musashi sank in history. The deep-sea Musashi appeared here and then attacked a city, causing a lot of damage. Then it returned to the sea and began to go north into our waters. Langley told you that we discovered her at that time. Enterprise said, "This situation is very rare. If you ask why, I don't know. Although the deep-sea flagships are intelligent, we can't guess their thoughts at all. After deep-sea Yamato woke up, he is now entrenched here." Sugu clicked a chess piece. "You mean deep-sea Musashi went north to join deep-sea Yamato? I didn't see other ships from the garrison at the dock. I was the only one here." "Yes, it means you only looked for me. Do you suspect they might attack my townhouse?" The company laughed without conscience. "I just think it's very possible. After all, didn't deep-sea Yamato bring the deep-sea Brave Dragon, and deep-sea Wikaku and the others to find you last time?" "No way. Why is deep-sea Yamato called a model worker? Isn't it just that he attacks human cities again and again, and then is defeated again and again?" "He has been defeated repeatedly, and he has been defeated repeatedly," Sugu said. "Be defeated by so many people? Yeah, I've never heard of revenge. Why should we take revenge after being defeated by our garrison? I really can't figure it out. We have been defeated before, but our ship girls have also paid a lot." "It's easy to say, but it's not easy." The company is very aware of all the details of Sugu's garrison and defeated deep-sea Yamato twice. It was so much the first time. People surrounded each other and took turns bombarding them. I don't want to talk about it the second time. It didn't count that I took off their clothes, but also broke their horns. If it was a defeat in the battle before, it will become a one-sided insult when it is your turn." Missouri sighed. She had heard everyone tell her many times about the interesting things that happened at sea. "It's a pity that I wasn't there at the time. I really wanted to take a photo with Yamato Fukumai. After all, I have been beaten to death before." Sugu thought that Fukumai Yamato's broken horn and Fukumai Wikaku's scythe were placed in the office. Fukumai Yamato's clothes had been washed well and everyone tried them on. Helena's clothes were more suitable, okay. I admit we went a little too far. The company said, it's not a little excessive, it's very excessive. Sugu said, Enterprise, which side are you on? I stand on the side of justice. The company said, international conventions do not allow torture of prisoners. International convention, Sugu sneered, thinking that this thing only depends on the protagonist and is actually not binding. However, he didn't say much. He looked at the chess pieces representing Yamato Fukumai and Musashi Fukumai together and said, last time, the deep sea flagship has also passed, how can the two sisters survive the storm now? The company said, you are very confident. Sugu nodded, it's not good to be too proud, but it's not good to feel inferior. Sugu thought to himself that since the last time, so many people have returned to the garrison, such as Kathood, Maid Reputation, Colorado Sisters, Missile Destroyer Changchun, Veneto, Daughter Andrea, and Dumpling Essie. Kess, Silly Monkey Dafeng and so on. Missouri and Hindenburg are still strong. Bulletin Tiao is not very good at talking, and even now he is just a little better, but he is still strong, and he has been in a combat team before. In the game, players must arrange attacks or exercises. Unless they are big bosses with cirrhosis, most players will only train a few powerful ship girls. Nowadays, it is reality. Everyone will arrange exercises, study, or other things, so there is no need to worry so much. Even though the training level in the game is only 1, now that I have been back at the garrison for so long, I have improved a lot. York City attacked last time and got the result. Now it is stronger. CV-16 and Ark Royal have been trained for so long and should be ready for use on the battlefield. Even if your training level is not high, there is no problem in staying in the rear. They can also pull out Tennessee, California, Guam, Alaska, etc., but of course a decisive battle will not work and they can only clean up the small boats. Let's talk about a certain big butt again. She is really hopeless. Holding the bomber B-25 every day is enough. It was rare to practice, but my sister York City forced me to pull him out. Even after such a long time, the training level is estimated to be no more than 5, and the little Lolita light aircraft carrier Ryukyu cannot be defeated. So instead of saying that the combat effectiveness has doubled, it can definitely be said that it has improved a lot. Here's the problem. The Enterprise smiled visibly. Some people used to say that the Seven Swords descended from the Tian Shan Mountains and were invincible in the world, but in fact various records show that the Abyssal ship girls also have camps. The Abyssal Yamato belongs to the Japanese family, but what we have discovered so far, there are quite a few deep-sea flagships that also belong to the Japanese series. Sugu thought for a while, then picked up and moved the 2 chess pieces. Then it doesn't matter if we add Deep Sea Dragon and Deep Sea Ruhi to them. Recent news has come back from various places, the company said, except for the Deep Sea Akagakaga, which has not seen any movement for the time being. The other deep sea flagships have become active recently and are ready to move. Deep Sea Ryajo and Shuane, there is also Abyssal Teiho, whose ship parameters are exploding. There is even Abyssal Kamikaze, which is the road base kamikaze. To be precise, it should be an airport. If it is this scale, can you still laugh? I can't laugh, Sugu said. That's not true, is it? Sugu scratched his hair. It would be really difficult to deal with this configuration. Of course, it's not too difficult to defeat it. It's mainly due to other issues. There is a big damage protection in the game. As long as you don't seek death, anything can be done easily. It just consumes a few resources, but at worst you still have a little time. Even if you don't mind carrying out manure lifting, if you don't have damage control and carry out a devastating attack, what you will lose is your goodwill. But here, if you sink by accident, it will never be seen again. There is no chance to regain your favor and make up for it. That's it. I have always been timid no matter what I do. Even with such a powerful ship girl, She is unwilling to go to the front line or take the initiative to suppress the deep-sea flagship. Because of the fear of accidents, even if anyone is sunk in one attack, whether it is the world's cutest little house, MRS Lexington, or whoever it will be a complete failure. Of course it's fake, it's all just guesswork, the company said, but looking at this situation, they must be taken into account. Sugu said, before thinking about victory, think about defeat first. You know you're afraid now, the company said, why did you go there so early? Who could have thought of such a thing? If I had known better, it would have been better for them. Sugu thought for a while and became fierce for a moment. Why, what's better, who is afraid of whom? If I have a chance to defeat them, except in addition to stripping off their clothes, folding their corners, and grabbing their weapons, they also had to take pictures of them in various poses. Missouri clapped her hands and wanted to tell a bunch of chickens, dogs, or paper tigers to overthrow them. Suddenly, he saw Sugu talking about it, with a worried expression on his face, and he hesitated to speak. If I didn't have any burden before, I wouldn't be afraid to challenge the deep-sea flagship at all, but now that I can't, I don't want anyone to worry. Okay, the company naturally saw Sugu's expression. Everything has not been determined yet, don't worry so much. In the worst case, hide away for now. This is not a retreat, this is a strategic shift. And don't worry, Deep Sea, the flagship is here, it's not a matter for you alone but a matter for everyone, and we will all help you. Sugu said, then I remember, before they come, I want to see you in our garrison. No problem, the company smiled, and of course it was still a joke. Well, I will help your garrison to defeat the deep-sea flagship, and then I can just give you 1 or 2 hero aircraft as rewards. I am not picky. Sugu narrowed his eyes little by little. Get out of here and take advantage of the situation. The Enterprise smiled and said, I'm risking my life to help you. Bang. I haven't asked you for the reward yet. You asked me for the reward first. Sugu thought to himself that in the game's opening event, he defeated the deep-sea flagship, not only the equipment, but also the ship girl. But here, there is no such good thing at all. Ship girls have their own ideas, and no one can arrange them. They can at most create opportunities for you. When Sugu saw the Enterprise, he thought to himself that she, the head of a ship branch that manages a huge area of sea, was a bit shabby with only carrier-based aircraft like the BTD-1 destroyer and no equipment. Although I know the reason, once the ship girl branch obtains powerful equipment, it will not prioritize itself, but give it to everyone first. Precisely because of this, many people followed her. Business says, stingy. Sugu smiled, Enterprise, I'm here to make a decision. As long as you get the most results, more than anyone else in our garrison, it's not impossible to give you a hero machine. You mean there's no need to talk? Then you can only blame yourself for being weak. Do you deserve to be beaten? The Enterprise geared up. Let me remind you, I am very powerful. I'm very powerful too. Sugu did a Popeye-like move to show off his muscles. Yes, you are very powerful, Enterprise said. I have never heard of someone being beaten to a pulp by Richelieu and unable to stand up. I admit, she is still a little worse than Richelieu. After all, she is a knight, Sugu said. Can you be better than her? I'm not better than her, but I'm better than York City, Enterprise said. Then I heard York City say that her favorite thing to do is to throw someone to the ground, put her hands behind her back, and finally sit on him on his back. I could hear him shouting for mercy if his threats failed, saying that I was wrong, and calling for mercy from Lord York City. He was the only one who actually begged for mercy from his own ship girl. Sugu thought to himself that he had begged for mercy a lot, but he couldn't bear to be defeated at the hands of this idiot York City. He said fiercely, York City, I can't do it without educating you when I go back. You have to admit when you are wrong and stand upright when you are beaten, Enterprise said. Are you the way an admiral should behave? Of course it is. Such a heartless admiral should be abolished and sent to the gendarmerie. Enterprise said, well, when the time comes, ask them to use all their hero machines to replace me. Hero machine, hero machine, hero machine. Missouri looked at the two people laughing and joking. She muttered, Enterprise, please join the town government, don't talk about hero machines, they have everything. The company said, besides the hero machine, what else does your garrison have? Missouri suddenly burst into laughter, laughing so hard that he forgot what he had originally thought. A certain person always treats sleeping with him as a reward. The company knew that Sugu had quite a lot of weddings. How can it be like this? The admiral is being treated like a duck. Don't frame people, Sugu said angrily. Why have I ever done this? I still want to deny it, Missouri said, who was holding Suk Bader that day. The company said, do you want to be so perverted?